Sup, my fellas, don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. 1970, Japan. The city of Tokyo, a lot of people keep firing at a certain target, but they fail. The city basks in chaos, they realize they can't even scratch their target, they think it's over. But at the same moment, while everyone thought it was over, he appeared, our white-haired hero, who told everyone that they had done a great job, because now it was our hero who was entering the battle. At the same moment they could not understand, could they leave him alone, but others say that our hero parent Magic the strongest poppy of all, and did not cry from happiness, from the realization that our hero was next to them. At that moment our hero was surrounded by hordes of monsters, who thought to attack him, but our hero was faster. He at the same moment began to destroy absolutely everyone. One day around the world found a large number of monsters. People called this phenomenon catastrophe. These monsters were simply impossible to treat with human weapons, but at the same time, with the emergence of these creatures, people found themselves capable of magic. It was the only way to fight these monsters. The war between the monsters and humans lasted over 10 years and continues to this day. Ichikami Minato is the first and strongest mage. Without him, saving the world will be impossible. At one point, our hero saw before him a devil of the first rank. Such an overwhelming atmosphere and such great power simply could not leave alone our hero, because he could not take against him a fight. They had a huge number of wounded. Our hero simply could not resist the full force of demons. Our hero simply could not cope. At one point he was thrown back blows on the wave, so much so that our hero could not understand who stood in front of him. He realized that he could not win, so decided to unleash all the power, because in magic power is determined by rank, and rank in turn is determined by the number of magic circles. The largest number of ranks that the creature in front of our hero could use is 14, and our hero in turn could as much as 15. After all, 15 rank, this is pure space, so at the same moment our hero fell, the boss was defeated, and our hero thought that this is where the disaster stopped, but the magical powers just ran out. Our hero thought that dying as the progenitors of magic is not a bad death. He thought it was a good life. However, as soon as our hero closed his eyes, then his soul immediately popped out and moved with another person. Our hero couldn't believe it. After all, he had used up all his magic. Why could he still move his fingers? What even happened? However, as soon as he looked in the mirror, he noticed that in front of him was not his past body, he was someone else. At that moment, while our hero was looking at his new face, the doctors came in and looked and saw that all the wounds that our hero's new body had recently received had already been fully repaired. They said that our hero was healed by holy magic, but our hero realized that the healing was automatic. But at this point, our hero asked what kind of accident they were talking about, because he had run out of magical power. It came out because of the battle with monsters during the disaster. The doctors looked among themselves and asked our hero what his name was, and also to name the year. Our hero called his real name, and then immediately said that it was 1970. The doctors looked at him for a while, and then said that our hero has memory loss. His name is Kusanagi Minato, and the year is 2020. He even noticed that there was a TV in front of him, but it was incredibly thin and had a clear picture. The date on the calendar also confirmed what he was saying. However, what was this marvelous device that the nurse was holding in her hands anyway? Had Minato actually traveled to the future? So at that very moment the doctor said that the very disaster Minato was talking about ended 50 years ago, and hasn't happened again since. There aren't even any monsters, are there? However, despite all these positive predictions, the doctor said that the monster is coming, but they are quite few, because now the world is quite peaceful. Minato could not believe it, because the reality that the world is finally at peace, for which he fought, he exhaled a sigh of relief. But at the same moment, he was told that Ichikami Minato had died, sacrificed himself to save the world in the world great disaster 50 years ago, so Minato is definitely not Ichikami Minato. After saying that, Ichikami Minato realized that he had been reborn as Kusanagi Minato living 50 years later. Minato could not believe how it happened and why. But a few weeks later, Minato returned to his apartment, which belonged to his new body. After reading information about himself, he realized that his parents died in childhood, so he was set admission to the family, but since high school lives alone, and then existed at the expense of his parents' inheritance. In spite of everything, he realized that there is no such magic as soul transmigration. Was the fact that he had been transmigrated the providence of God, or was it just a consequence of chance? He looked at his card, where it said Academy of Magic. To first that in his new age of opportunities to discover such things he was very interested. It all looked incredibly interesting. However, at one point something strange sounded in his bag. Taking it out, he noticed that it was the same phone. Someone had called him, but Minato couldn't even use it, so he just asked it back. However, in this phone was written for Minato to drag himself to the academy, even if there is no money. At this point we see the academy. Minato is very surprised at all this view, because it is not really here or trained in holy magic. He did not even think that the school can attend not only children. He was already anticipating this moment. But looking at the training fields, he noticed that almost no one could handle magic. What a disappointment to be around him. He couldn't believe it. All they do is use less than a tenth of the advanced mages of his time. How would a mage be enough to survive another disaster? Is this really one of the negative sides of the establishment of this world? Because in this way exactly in degradation. But at this moment he had already reached the class. He could not understand what seat he was sitting on. But he realized that everything that was happening around him was so interesting that he could not restrain the smile that appeared on his face. But does Minato even have comrades? However, as soon as Minato thought about it, he immediately noticed that he was disturbed by some group of 3 people who couldn't find a seat for themselves because our hero didn't respond to their SMS. Our hero didn't care because he didn't really know who they were, which made them even more aggressive. They could not understand how our hero could even forget someone like them. They called our hero in full scum. Remembered that most likely it was that man, it was Tadano, who called him once. Our hero even suggested that it was his comrade. As soon as our hero said this, Tadano reminded him that friends have their own duty while extending his hand. Our hero said he realized what he wanted here, so immediately went to shake his hand. But the bully was against it. He said that Minato was wrong. He only wanted money from Minato-ese. He kept pulling him by the tie and said that he should get the money quickly because he had a decent inheritance from his parents. This is Minato realized that his new body has long been bullied. But as soon as the bully has already pointed his fist at Minato, that class immediately entered the girl who said good morning to everyone. She was so brilliant that the bully even stopped beating Minato. He said that we'll remember this act to him in the future. At this point, while the lesson was going on, the topic was what the Great World Disaster brought. Almost the entire class was asleep, but the teacher continued that it was considered the last disaster in history. The world was filled with monsters and everyone was in despair, but the progenitor of magic, the great saint, Ichikami Minato, was different from everyone else. He never let up, fighting monsters single-handedly, and in the end he died after overpowering a high-ranking demon, and it was from that time onwards that disasters did not occur. The teacher asked the class, who is that very same mage really? So the very girl who was struck by his beauty that he is the only survivor, as well as the first mage of the disaster, also in his honor as if the Academy of Divine Magic. Her eyes were glowing. She said that Ichikami Minato was the only survivor of the first disaster, as well as the first person to awaken to magic. The Academy was built for the sake of having magicians like Ichikami Minato after another. He is the greatest magician of all history. However, as the girl spoke, then Minato blushed incredibly. He felt like everyone wanted to embarrass him. After all, if he had known that he would be subjected to such torture, he definitely would not have come there. However, just as the doctor said, the world was at peace. Is that why magic has become weaker? Minato liked the world he was in now, peaceful, without any war, so at that moment the teacher said that this was the end of today's lesson and also reminded him that tomorrow there would be an evaluation of magic power. The bully immediately came to Minato and said that tomorrow there will be an assessment of magic power so that he will be very accurate to look at the insignificant strength of Minato. Minato couldn't understand. Did that guy miss him so much that he can't make it through without talking at least a lesson? This moment, while our hero turned away, because he did not want to waste time talking to such a lowlife, then the bully said, is our hero such a talentless in his parents? Was serious, so much so that he said he was an amazing loser, which pissed the bully off. This pissed off the bully so much that he wanted to use magic in the classroom. He directed it at our hero. No one could not believe that the bully would use magic in the classroom, but despite the explosion, despite the fog that formed in the classroom, our hero stood with Lech. The bully could not believe it, because his magic did not leave a single scratch on our hero. Somehow it even came out. Well, our hero was confident in his abilities, because he realized that from the magical power of the level of the first rank can be protected with just a barrier. Even magic is not necessary to use. Our hero began to say that he was lenient because he thought that the bully is just a child, but children need to be punished. So at that very moment from Minato began to believe so strong magic, so strong flow that no one could not move, no one understood what was happening. But Minato was getting closer and closer, so at that very moment the bully fell on the floor, not daring to do anything. However, as soon as entered the teacher, Minato immediately stopped. The teacher asked for an explanation, because did someone in his class dare to use magic? But Minato only said that nothing happened in the classroom, because it cannot be that someone used magic on the street. But the teacher said that there is no such thing, that there is no magic club activity in the schoolyard, so Minato assumed that all students, not institutions, use magic arbitrarily because magicians want to use it easily. The teacher asked about the smoke that was in the classroom, so Minato found an explanation for that too. He said that it came from the street. The teacher thought that if Minato says that, it must be true, so he immediately went to look for the culprit and also asked everyone to go home. He wouldn't want to be bothered. Is it all worth it to be done quietly? However, as soon as Minato went home, the bully cursed him. Minato realized that even though they are a student of the academy, but their level of magic proficiency is Tumi language, able or even modern magic to defeat the monsters. After all, even if there is no disaster, then the monster had to stay. Should Minato check and look for them? We in turn see the old city, Shibuya, where Minato was flying through the sky. He realized that even this city has changed a lot, total change. In fact, he could not even smell the supernatural forces as well as monsters. However, despite the fact that everything is in ruins, the police continued to inspect the surroundings, but at the same moment he again felt the power of the monster, also human. Sent to the same place, he noticed that a certain head-headed girl was screaming for help because one of the monsters approached her. Minato stepped between the girl and the monster and immediately struck it, which caused the monster to agonize. Our hero noticed that she was a mage and with the police, so he asked her to be more careful next time. As soon as she thanked our hero, he immediately disappeared. She could not understand who it was, because it seems that he was a mage of outstanding abilities, and it seemed that he did not even use any spells. Our hero in turn realized that his decision to hide his face was a great decision. After all, he had just been reborn, he definitely did not want to stand out, but still realized that the level of the police had fallen to the point where they could be killed by a magical beast of such a level. Apparently, they can't kill monsters of such situations. Our hero said it was the police, but there was no point in talking about the students at all. Shit. It all made him realize that even in this era our hero was needed very badly, so the first thing to do is to exterminate all the monsters in the area. At the same moment we realize that the time has come when we have to evaluate the magic power. The teacher showed the very crystal, and also explained that it is necessary to properly measure the level of magic power and also find out what element you possessed. After all, if everyone wants to practice magic professionally, one should not underestimate the importance of this endeavor. Our hero could not believe it, because without this huge contraption cannot be evaluated. Our hero realized that the teachers were also weakened, because the feeling of magical power is the basis of all magic. However, while Minato was thinking that all was lost, he was approached by the girl who was praising Ichikami Minato. She asked him for a few words, which caused a lot of questions from all the classmates. No one could believe that she was the first to talk to someone like Minato. At the same moment she said that they were probably talking for the first time, so she decided to introduce herself. She is the second daughter of the Mizuha family, an aristocratic mage. Her name. Minato didn't understand what that even meant, aristocrat mages. This raised a bunch of questions from the girl, so she started saying that her mouth was at the head of the 4 elemental aristocratic mages. Minato realized that in his time there was no such thing. Surnames like hers he had never heard of, and the level of magical power she had was meager, very weak for a girl who came from a lineage of outstanding mages. In turn, the girl could not understand why Minato was so weakly reacting. After all, he is not talking to just anyone, but to her. Why he does not appreciate it at all. However, while Minato showed all his incomprehensibility in this case, the bully just could not find a place because he could not believe that Minato dared to talk to Yuika. But at this moment, Minato said that he had not done before, and what business did the one who came from the aristocrat family have with him? At the same moment, Yuika thought that she needed to come to her senses to keep her dignity as the daughter of an aristocratic mage family. So she decided to remember that yesterday Minato was hit by magic but was not hurt at all. She had to find out the reason, so said he wanted to talk about yesterday's incident. Well, as soon as the teacher shouted that he needed the next one to approach the crystal, then Minato, with a clear conscience, went to the assessment. But as soon as Minato wanted to approach the crystal, his path was blocked by the very bully who wanted to show everyone that he was incredibly strong. His magic power level was 1000 and the element fire. He was happy that he had risen from the last time, and Minato realized that if his power level was 1000, then the numerical standard was the same as it was 50 years ago. The next person who followed the crystal was Mizuha, who as soon as she touched the crystal, her magic power level was 2000 and the main element was water. Everyone was shocked by such a spectacular power, so the bully said that it looked like the two of them had the highest or this year's students. He said that they had a chance of leaving as excellent magicians, but Minato was the only one who wasn't thrilled with these results. He couldn't believe that 2.000 was the highest among this year's students. He thought that it was just a little higher than a beginner's level. Mizuha in turn thought that Minato was amazed by her strength. She was sure that our hero would look at her with such a smug face. But our hero actually couldn't look at her, but for a completely different reason. As soon as he turned away from her, he really called out to our crystal hero. All the students were discussing the fact that our hero was the one who had the worst grades in the entire academy, even though his academic test scores were impressive. Everyone thought that our hero, the bully, was hoping to embarrass himself in front of Yuika. But the only thing Yuika was thinking about was what our hero's grade level really was. She was only thinking that he shouldn't be above her level. Minato, on the other hand, couldn't figure out what he should do because at that time when he was a great saint, it was too much trouble to draw so much attention to himself. Wouldn't it be better to just cheat? but still he came to the conclusion that it was better not to do that. He decided to show absolutely all his power. At this moment, when Minato touched the crystal, then almost the entire academy felt it. No one could raise what was even happening, so at the same moment the crystal generally exploded. Minato was the only one who thought it was strange that it broke, even though he didn't strain himself to the fullest. Minato couldn't do something that none of the students could feel his power. Do I really have the maid's quest? The teacher immediately began to check all the students to make sure that all were intact. Coming up to Minato, Minato immediately said that it was okay, that he was lucky even though he was in the epicenter. The teacher at one time said that the first time he saw that the measuring device broke, could it be that it was defective? Well, what they even had to do, Maid never found out what element, as well as the level of magical power was Minato. What's the problem? Learn said that he was just planning a class where they would divide into groups to start learning combat. It was there he wanted to look at their abilities, and then already decide what to do, but just because of this situation with the crystal, he realized that they will not succeed, so at this very moment turned to the same bully and asked if they would accept Minato in their team. The bully smiled at first, so at that very moment said they would accept him. The teacher thought that they could be relied on, so he looked forward to their classes, but the bully made it clear to Minato that he would definitely not leave everything so easily. In front of us is the old town, Shibuya. Monsters still inhabit these places, which have suffered greatly during the universe disaster. However, it is at the present time that Shibuya is abandoned, and the police and magic regularly exterminated the creatures living there. Thus, the academy student also provides the necessary help, so most of the creatures have already been killed by professional mages. So the teacher assured everyone that they can be calm because there are very few monsters left in that area. Minato in turn thought that he did not expect that they really have classes with real battles. He even thought that at least a bunch of monsters students will be able to kill. In addition, it seems that they will act in groups. Could this be the same place Minato was just recently, last night? They found it strange, because he was sure that he had exterminated all the monsters there, but he could still feel the magic. There wasn't even any sign of a disaster emerging. Then why did these creatures keep appearing? He heard the conversation of the girls who were behind me here who wanted to compete all this time, but it was Minato who didn't understand. Why was everyone so careless, even though this is a lesson that involves actual combat? However, it was at this point that the teacher said that he was now starting with real combat lessons, so he asked that they be sure to act in teams. But at this moment, as the teacher was saying this, the very same bully pinned Minato against the wall, saying that now no one would interfere with their showdown. He even said that it seems that our hero stopped respecting them, despite the fact that the bully treated him nicely, so this time there will be no mercy. Our hero could not understand. After all, does he dislike him so much? So why does the bully does not want to ignore him at all? Then our hero decided to answer him, just pissed off the bully. He said that our hero is silent at all, says he was a piece of garbage, not the more. The bully could not understand why at all Yuika continued to pay attention to him. At first our hero could not understand why the bully was angry at him at all, but then realized that most likely the one likes the girl. However, as soon as our hero said this, the bully just started to lose his temper. He began to use magic, saying that Minato signed his own death sentence. Minato asked them to stop, but the bully thought Minato just wanted to apologize, so said it was too late to ask for forgiveness. It was at this point that Minato told everyone to look back. The hooligans thought that Minato was trying to trick them, but when they looked back, they saw a terrifying monster. They could not believe it, that there will be such a monster, because how from birth was in Shibuya. All the henchmen of that very bully started asking him to handle it instead of hoping for it, so the bully said it was a simple matter. He started to use his magic on that very island. They thought they had succeeded, but at the same moment they noticed that he was not a scratch there. Minato realized that this was the way it was supposed to be, because in the first level of that very bully simply could not be defeated by the devil's guards. At this very moment, while all the hooligans fell to the floor, tears formed in their eyes, as well as shaking teeth, the most important hooligan wet only pants. He was so frightened, because the very fang of the devil flew at him. It was at this moment, when Minato began to approach the very guard of the devil, he jumped, because he realized what would happen to him. He saw the future, how to pierce the beam from Minato. Minato told all the bully that even the devil can understand who was the strongest among them, but he still decided to form circles around him, and Minato began to use his strength. All the hooligans thought that Minato will not be able to cope with him, but Minato used the ability of the second rank, Stone Break, and then a fire arrow, which was the ability of the first rank. After a moment began to scream in the carriage. All the hooligans looked at it with closed eyes. They could not believe in the tone that Minato was able to kill such an opponent. They could not believe that even a bully with the first rank could not do it. But Minato did not think about how others thought of him, he only thought about the fact that it was obvious to him that the presence of the guards in Shibuya was extraordinary. What was strange was that the monsters that Minato had to exterminate had reappeared. Could this be the omen of a new catastrophe? Could it be that the very thing that our hero recalls with tears in his eyes is approaching as fast as he could not even imagine? Is it possible that everything that happened then will be repeated again? However, he decided to pull himself together because even if disaster occurs, he will try his best to save everyone. Despite the fact that the hooligans were dissatisfied with the very act of our hero, however, they could not do anything about it, and yet he saved them, was able to defeat the devil, and therefore stronger than them. That's what they didn't want to admit. But after a moment we realized that this picture saw not only the hooligans, but also the same girl aristocrat. We will see that the same girl could use the ability of the first rank, the water disc. Everyone thought it was incredibly cool, because that is what was expected from the Mizuha. But that particular girl didn't understand how one could be surprised by such a level, for even she was bothered by the fact that he wasn't bothered by such mediocre people. But still she liked that they could not do anything about the fact that she had talent. However, by that time she noticed that our hero began to clamp down. She excused herself from her group, said that she would move away not much. She decided to follow everything that will happen to our hero. After walking a bit, she noticed that most likely the same hooligans were bullying him. She certainly could not leave it just like that. She cannot let them get away with it. However, she herself noticed the devil guards. She was scared, for she realized that this was not someone they could safely defeat. She felt that she had to help them, despite all the fear in her hands, because she is a person from the Mizuha clan. She wanted to shout to our hero to run away, because he was definitely not strong enough for him, but she saw the explosion, a charge of magical energy that was produced from the hand of our hero. She could not believe that it was our hero, who was timid and also had no talent for magic. She thought about the fact that he was a different person now. She also hadn't heard Minato count a spell. Could it be that he didn't read at all? How could he even defeat a first-ranked guardian? We understand that the power level of a monster is determined by the number of crystals it has, and it is also used to restore its place in the hierarchy. On the 6th place magical beasts, on the 5th place magical guards, on the 4th demons, on the 3rd supreme demons, on the 2nd without, and on the 1st level of the devil or Satan. Each creature has a fixed number of valid ranks. This is something that all modern mages should know. Even the girl realized that in order to defeat the guards they needed to have at least the 3rd rank. With the 1st rank it was simply impossible to do. But why was she hiding in the first place? As soon as she wanted to leave the place where she had been all this time, Minato said that she had a bad hobby of peeking at others. She asked how did Minato even know that she was spying on him. But Minato found nothing better than just saying that it would be strange if the mage didn't notice it. However, looking at the girl, he realized that most likely she just couldn't notice the magical power. He realized that he would not expect anything from the girl, so he immediately turned around and silently left. Of course the girl didn't like this. She started telling Minato to stop, and also described what it even means. Well, as soon as she looked at the place where Minato was a second ago, but noticed that he was not there at all. Minato in turn was already on one of the roofs of the houses. He exhaled with relief that she did not notice anything. So at the same moment he decided to check the whole situation. He realized that the guards were no longer around, but there was a decent number of magical beasts. He still doubted that the other students would be able to handle them, but if the bully level was considered excellent, he thought it would be a good idea to reduce the number of monsters at least a little. He started using one of his abilities while scouring the entire area as well as the surroundings of Shibuya Station. Minato used his skill, magic projectiles that immediately started flying all over the field. All the students looked at it with astonishment, thinking that they were meteors. However, only the girl realized that it was magic. We see that one group of students realized that they could not cope. The wolves were already jumping on them, but at the same moment the wolves began to pierce the very bullets that Nashley would have missed. He realized that he felt that everything was going right, those wolves were dying. But as soon as he took a closer look he realized that he had overdone it too much, because he had killed almost all the monsters in the area. Was this really meant as a lesson? He definitely shouldn't have used so much of his own power to leave the other students to do some work. As soon as Minato noticed that he had overdone it, he jumped and began to move through the air at the same moment, and then he would go outside that no one was there, and there was no need to hide his strength to the extreme. But still, if it attracted too much attention, it would cause him some inconvenience. The teacher couldn't understand who was capable of such a thing, and death by a single blow was definitely the work of a person of proper skill. And he didn't know that there were so many magical beasts left. The herd must have definitely been smashed. He couldn't understand, was it really magic without the use of elements, magic without elements, and such a large number of charges? This was definitely the first time a teacher or a first time encounter. Without this magic, they would definitely still be in danger. After all, 2 creatures is not a problem, but to oppose something with something, the students would definitely not be able to cope with it. All the students could not understand why there were so many opponents. They could die. But for all the hair-splitting apologies, after all they had heard that the murder was to be handled by the police, but the academy should have made sure of that very thing, he was really putting them all in danger. But even though all the students were scared to death, they wanted to know who really saved them all. But as we know, the teacher didn't know either, even though everyone wanted to thank him. He only realized that it was hardly someone from the police or official mages, it was probably even someone who was outside the law. But the fact remained, he had saved them all. So the unknown mage could only be thanked, but no more. As soon as all above were sent back to the academy, then everyone wanted to discuss what they saw a few minutes ago. They could not imagine that such a thing was possible at all. But Minato was happy at heart because it seems that no one was hurt and all thanks to him. And also survived those who certainly did not want Minato something good, those very hooligans. Despite the fact that everyone was already calm, Mizuha realized that Minato killed the guardian of the first rank. In addition, that huge amount of magic that our heroes had with them most likely also the handiwork of our hero, because the magic of the fire element, also magic without their use, all this raised questions. There were no students in her memory who possessed both elements at once. But she must be overthinking things, so she decided to calm down, because our hero cannot possess two elements, so she decided that the magic without elements used someone else, but definitely not our hero. But even though she is trying to set you up for this, she realized that it was he who had defeated the guardian, but who was our hero really? As soon as we finished looking at the whole situation from the girls' side as well as the classmates, then we can notice the bullies who were definitely scared by the whole thing. They even thought that it was our hero who saved them all from the monsters. They were saying that it was our hero who defeated the guardian, so he could do it. However, as soon as they said all this, their leader made it clear to them that he did not want to hear a word about our hero or any such talk at all. He talked about how there was no way that our hero, a worthless sociopath, could be strong. He thought to himself that there was something wrong there anyway. His henchmen decided that they had to play along with their leader, so they agreed with him that things were indeed strange, that our hero was up to no good. Tadano just mad. He said that our hero is not playing fair. He said that he is not playing fair. He promised everyone that he will tear off the mask of our hero. It was time after school. Minato was returning home, but at the same moment he was met by absolutely all the acquaintances of the bully. They surrounded him. Minato heroes in turn was not surprised, and I thought it was something scary or strange. He said to stop doing this and just go to practice magic. Tadano in turn said that he was talking too much for someone who was playing foul. Minato could not understand what he was talking about, so the bully began to say that he just cannot believe that Minato can use such a strong magic. He asked Minato to confess to the tricks that he used. Minato realized that after that moment there was no point in trying to talk to them. But as soon as Minato thought about it, the very bully called him to him, because he would praise him for the fact that Minato did not run away. However, despite the fact that the bully wanted to seem cool, Minato decided to destroy his appearance. He said that Vexa is not necessary. The bully saw this as a call to action, so that at the same moment he attacked Minato, he did not attack alone. Everyone who was nearby also began to knock him down. They were shouting that magic is just useless in battle, that the hero can't even do anything without it. They said that Minato may not even try to apologize, because even so they will just continue to beat him. But if we take a closer look at the situation, we can realize that Minato does not get a single blow from them, because his magic is activated automatically. So they could even break their hands on his body, because they will not leave a single wound on the body of Minato. Our hero thought that those bullies are an incredible amount of trouble. Is it really worth it to pretend that you still hit him? However, while our hero sat and waited for the moment when those calmed down, but at the same moment showed the same girl aristocrat. She asked all the bullies, what do you even do? So as soon as the hooligans saw the same Yuika, they just froze in anticipation of what might happen. They started making excuses and saying who was just having fun. But this did not help them. You girls saw that they were bullying and then, at the training above our hero. However, whereas it even heard that the students of the Academy of Magic were engaged in bullying, are those I am ashamed of their deeds. The bullies of course did not know what to say, because they thought that it was all because of our hero, because of him, because of his fault. The most important bully reprimands Yuika. So at that very moment grabbed our hero by the hand and led away. The main bully saw this whole picture. Somehow the girl herself holds our hero's hand, so at the same moment he had veins swollen on his face, he began to repeat the same thing, that everything happened exactly because of our hero. All his henchmen realized that something terrible was about to happen, or rather their leader was going to force them to kill Minato. All the students started to prepare a spell, so the girl was telling Minato to be careful. She was very frightened, but the hooligans were pleased. They read that Minato just did not manage to cheat. At the same moment, all his henchmen thought that it was probably a bad idea because our hero could actually die. But Tadano thought that it was nothing like that, because it was just an accident that the school had used magic and it had gotten out of control, but Minato had just gotten caught up in it. As soon as they said that, then the dust that rose up, our hero said that their dabbling is already out of bounds. He said that he did not give it much importance because he regarded it as childish behavior, but apparently the stubborn can be corrected only with a club, so Minato will take action now. He said that now would be the time for education. All the bullies were frightened. It is our hero turned out to be alive even after such a volume of magic. But despite this, Minato continued, saying that he was in danger not only of our hero, but also of the Mizuha. Could it be that we only have a lot of aggression to darken the eyes of a student? While the bully shouted and then that it is not only the fault of our hero but also the fault of the Mizuha, he said that will be relative to our hero juice as much as it takes to kill him. Our hero went up from where a small mug appeared. All the hooligans laughed at him because they thought that hero can do nothing. But at that moment, our hero used the ability Magical Stoke, which began to suck the power of magical energy from the students. Our hero sucked only a little bit of magic and it has already completely dried up. But despite this all, he hoped that those at least a little bit come to their senses. But the girl was in shock because what kind of magic was it? What happened? Why did the same hooligans just took and fainted at one moment? You know, the hero was going to go home, but she asked him to wait. She began to ask her about magic, about her abilities, and also talked about the fact that our hero recently did not have magic at all. Who is our hero? From our hero came out the last spirit. It seemed to him that this whole situation will be incredibly difficult to explain, so said that the girl had to say something else. The girl was very embarrassed, her cheeks flushed, so she said that she expresses her gratitude for the fact that our hero saved her. While she wasn't looking at our hero, while she was still a little embarrassed, she asked him to answer her questions, but like that time our hero went somewhere else again, our hero just took her aside. We can see Shibuya again, the old town. Our hero continues to patrol it every night. He came there again because he had a bad feeling, because apparently the monster that was supposed to be exterminated during the day has been resurrected. However, what is the sign of what this incident is? After all, if it is only Shibuya, then our hero alone will be enough. But despite all this, Minato feels the magic of the monsters present in other places as well. It is possible that the police simply cannot keep up, and the level of mages simply cannot be called high. Whatever the case, Minato alone cannot give demons in all of Japan. It will simply be impossible. So what then to do, Minato? Is it necessary to take some action? But while he was thinking about it, he decided that first it will be necessary to clear the area in the neighborhood, and then already act to inspect without attracting attention. After which Minato again used the same skill that asked absolutely all the monsters. We see a certain man who was very drunk. He was walking home, near the house of which devoured the monster, but did not have time to do anything, because Minato was nearby. It even seemed to the man that he fancied everything. But at the same moment we realized that some person was able to film Minato, was able to film that a certain magician in black saved the man. The next day the headmaster called Minato east to him. He talked about the fact that the students are using magic outside the school. This is the message they received yesterday. They said that if this is all true, they cannot leave this issue without attention, so asked them to explain the whole situation. The hooligans shouted that they didn't use magic, because it was Minato who started the fight. Minato could not believe that the hooligans could lie so easily. He even admired it. But still he realized that it would be impossible to keep silent, because it was Morocco, so there was nothing left but to explain himself. Minato with a calm face said that everything that the bullies said is a lie, and the girl was in agreement with this. She said that the friends of the hooligan bullied Minato. The ones who started using magic were the bullies. The teacher of course could believe all this, but he was more interested in the fact that Minato was able to use magic too. But the girl says that it was just self-defense, he didn't even do anything wrong. The bully tried to justify himself, but the girl immediately shut his mouth. She was uncomfortable with the fact that not only the bully bullied Minato, but also dares to shift all the responsibility on him. She talked about how he was probably a bully even though he had no shame as an academy student. Tadano said that Minato is for this academy is no one, and should not be there at all, even proposed to expel Minato. But the girl said that the only one who does not fit this academy is the bully. The bully could not believe the words of the girl. He said that he was the only one who could stand on a par with the girl, because he also has the best results in the whole course, but not Minato. The girl couldn't understand what the very bully was even saying, so he started talking about the girl to think soberly. He asked her to understand the fact that a guy like Minato just can't keep her safe. He asked her to consider him as a guy so that she could become his girlfriend. However, at that very moment the girl only felt disgusted. She said that she would never have such a thing. She talked about how she would never be the girlfriend of such a man who enjoys and mocks his own over others, and certainly not a man who chooses a completely inappropriate moment to confess. Minato stood back and realized that the bully deserved everything he deserved, but still pity was very much aroused. At this point the principal, looking at the whole situation, said that it looks like the blame lies with that very bully as well as his friends, but our hero used magic in self-defense. He barked out the fact that they didn't need people using magic with realistic desires, so he decided to expel everyone. No one could believe it. After all, they were only obeying the instructions of the very bully. However, while the showdown was going on, the teacher told our hero, also the girl, that those could already go. At this point, when our hero and the girl came out of the principal's office, Yuika said that he had not felt such a yearning for a long time. It was really low on their part. Our hero wondered what would become of all the guys when they were expelled. But the girl said, or what, that they do not put magicians, because for guys like them it is a pattern. But our hero is good, how it all can be silent after all that they said about him. Our hero was thinking about what he was going to say, but she stepped in, then he did. Minato wanted to say something, but he looked at her. She could not understand why Minato was staring at her so hard, so Minato said that he had a thought, quite suddenly. It seems to him that this is not the first time a girl has tried to help him out. Even then in class, and also during the actual battle class, and now. Minato said that one was amazingly good, which immediately drove Yuika into a blush. She just asked him not to say that again, so she ran away at that very moment, blushing. Minato, when he was alone, realized that the person who lived in this body before had already died, and he was reborn. Did that person decide to die because of the abuse, or was it just an ordinary car accident? Minato did not know exactly why, but all those who bullied him were definitely punished. At least some retribution was done. At this point, we can see that some people entered the office of the principal. They were asking about the whole situation, which happened not only to Minato, but also to other students of the academy. However, the principal said that fortunately none of the civilians were hurt, but he called all these people because one of the students involved is Mizuha Yuika. At the same moment, they said that they understood the situation, so they thanked them for the report, but the principal only asked that they say hello to their father. However, the girl with the same hair as Mizuha said that their father was interested in investing for the academy, so let him be calm. At the same moment they were discussing not only Minato, but also the language itself. They say that I am all they have learned. It is true, then Minato has not a bad power. Without fighting several mages at once it is extremely ungenerous. Because if you don't have a gas of impressive power, you can't win. The boy asked, did he mean to say that Minato is stronger in comparison to them? But the girl only said that it wasn't true, she was just interested in him, so they wanted to confirm the strength level of our hero, as well as the question with his sister whether she would leave the school or not. In front of us was Yuki's sister, Mizuha Yuika, a third-year S-class student, and next to her was Katsuragi Ryuji, also a third-year S-class student. At this moment, while Minato was being discussed by many people, he was just mindlessly lying on the desk, because the constancy of peace in the world just did not give him peace. He did not know what to do. However, at one point he heard a conversation that many discussed the mages in black. Minato thought that it was probably someone from the magical aristocracy, even though he didn't care about it. But despite all this, the teacher called Minato, because the students who couldn't pass the magic power evaluation would now be reevaluated. Yuika thought she would finally find out what our hero's real power was, but at the same moment she noticed her sister. She thought, why did she even come to a place like this? She thought, was it necessary to watch the reappraisal? Did her sister come to see our hero? Could it be that she too finds our hero's strength incredibly suspicious for someone like him? So at this very moment, when the teacher asked for our hero's crystal to come out, then the magic power evaluation had already begun. At the same moment, Minato remembered that he had already broken everything last time, so now decided that the strength would have to be monitored. At this point, Minato is very exhausted, because he tried only not to break the crystals. The teacher thought that this time he had succeeded, but in the elements Minato has missing. But the strength of magic energy had barely reached 100, which was still the worst in the course. Everyone understood that it is very rare to have no elements at all, but according to rumors, Minato-E's are not suitable for magic in principle. All the seniors thought that it was a lie that Minato defeated the gang. Apparently there was some kind of mistake, a misunderstanding. So at the same moment the sister of the same girl just took and said that it was already time. Because the case was closed, they realized that there was nothing to do there. And here on Minato stared at an incredibly huge number of looks. They said that she for the hero too much tired of some kind of evaluation. Apparently, this is a common thing for those who are not friends with magic. However, the teacher in turn asked not to sell it any importance, because the amount of magic is definitely not a whole picture. The girl could not believe it, because he thought that it is certainly strange. She knew that the real strength of Minato is such that he was able to cope with the magical guardian, and he must also possess elemental fire magic, as well as without elemental. But that the amount of magic can be adjusted she certainly has not heard. How did our hero even have it? Our heroes in turn realized that the result came out flawless, the magic power had to be adjusted as accurately as possible, and it came out quite tedious. But despite this, the trick worked, that was the most important thing. Our hero at this point, as soon as they left the room, asked the Mizuha what their intern was doing in that very evaluation point, because our hero was interested in something. However, as soon as they wanted to go further, they were stopped. Just the same high school students, where was the older sister of that very girl. Our hero did not know who is standing in front of him in general, so at that very moment the girl introduced herself so that she is the older daughter of the family Mizuha Yuika, and the person behind her is Katsuragi. They were both in their 3rd year. Minato realized that the girl who stood in front of him and the Mizuha are sisters, so he asked what business they came to them. So at the same moment the girl said that they have no questions to Minato, but to her younger sister there is one, why she could not do anything against the criminals, because even the older sister had heard that she was saved by this young man, whose strength is equal to 100, is it true at all? So at this very moment, the whole country began to shout that in studies, in sports, and in magic she was able to yield to all sorts of fields, so said her younger sister to leave the academy. At this point, Yuika began to remember the very trials that her older sister made her go through. In every single one of these trials, the girl lost. She could never beat her, not even in the mage talk could not be good. Her older sister said that if only one hand would be the mage of their family, that would be enough. Yuika wanted to say something against it, but her older sister kept saying that it would be better for her younger self to listen to what she was saying. Start attending a regular school. Yuika wanted to cry, tears were coming to her eyes, and Ruki was trying to lay down all her clothes, so Minato said that everything she said was very arrogant. Han started to say that she couldn't believe what Minato had opened her mouth, but Minato kept pointing out that the older sister was having a non-stop monologue without letting the person she was talking to speak. This is the very thing called arrogance. Onruka said that this is a family conversation. The word of an outsider is definitely not given, but Minato said that you are not a conversation. For him it sounded, it is an order. The hand started to scream, but Minato kept at it. He talked about how you can't impose your way of life on someone because there is no reasonable basis for it, even if you are a family member. But at that moment, her older sister said that it was only reasonable for her younger sister to give up her pipe dream because her sister didn't even have a talent for magic. Her younger sister hadn't even achieved a single victory against her. At this point, Yuika completely sank. She realized that her sister was right, she had no talent. Even though she tried to convince herself that she was talented, she couldn't even manage to win against her own sister even once. Minato said that Yuika would win. Both younger and older sister were shocked, so Minato explained himself, saying that of course, not right here and now, but she will definitely win. At this point, big sister said that we could have a magic duel in 2 weeks, 2-on-2. The older sister said that our hero would not be able to escape after these words, but our hero was sure that of course he would participate. He was bursting with the idea, so he looked at Yuika and asked, how could it be his turn? Yuika couldn't believe what our hero was saying at all. However, at that very moment she said that she wanted to participate as well. Our hero looked at her while smiling sweetly and said that they decided that if they won, the 2 high school students would never interfere with each other again. However, if they win, then Yuika will leave the academy, no one will definitely hold back. The seniors said that they would finally know reality at its best. At the same moment, when everyone dispersed, then Yuika said that she has one request to Minato. She asked to become her mentor. Our hero in turn thought that he was called to the roof for something else, but certainly not to ask to be a mentor. Minato began to say that he was not wrong, that the magic power is equal to 100, and now Yuika is asking a similar person to be her mentor. Well, of course Yuika was not a foolish 10, she said that she can accurately hide real strength. She does not even doubt that our hero is several times stronger than her. Minato could not believe that Yuika noticed this, but the girl continued, saying that it is Minato knows how to become stronger, that's why he talked about defeating her sister. Minato in turn was a little upset, because this type of person like her always sees the world black or white, as it was she who provoked Minato to fight. Minato just did not know what he should say in such a case, but at the same moment she began to bow at his feet while asking him with all her heart. So at that very moment, Minato agreed, saying that he could, but on one condition, something would be willing to follow what she says, as well as not running away halfway. Minato simply could not refuse her when asked so fervently, and the fact is that they are waiting for them, so to help the growth of the magician will not be superfluous, so said that they will start right today. Our hero thought about some place, but he did not think of anything, so Yuika suggested going to her house. Once both of them arrived, then our hero noticed that she just had a huge house. But Yuika thought that it wasn't unusual at all because her father was a magical aristocrat, so it went without saying. But in her mind, she was thinking that this was the first time she was bringing a boy home at all. It might even look a little strange from the outside. Our hero noticed that her mood had changed a bit, but he did not pay much attention to it because it was already time to start. He looked at her and called her by name. Of course Yuika blushed at this, because she did not expect that our hero will call her by name. What she was thinking a few moments ago exactly, Minato should not know her sister is also called Mizuha, so it will be unclear who he means. Judging by the face, Yuika was a little upset, because she was expecting some other answer, but Minato just said that if it does not suit her, then he can call her by another name, but Yuika was no longer minded, she did not care. So at the same moment Minato said that they could start, and the first thing he asked her was to answer the question, what does magic power really mean? Yuika thought it was an incredibly simple question, so said that magical power is the internal energy of the body, which is vital to handling magic. Minato thought it was actually very easy, so asked her what spellcasting meant then. But even to this question, strangely enough she was able to answer. She even started to answer the drains well and flawlessly that he asked her if she was smart. Well, our hero looked at her and said that all the answers were wrong. Our hero couldn't understand, after all is modern magic so ignorant, what even happened in all these 50 years that he wasn't there. So at the same moment he began to say that there is magic power not only in bodies, but also in nature, and the spell in any case has an auxiliary function, and yes, increase of magic power with the help of intention is possible. Believed to be such cannot be, because if it were all true, then the science of magic would be turned upside down. But our hero was confident. He said that even though she did not believe him, but he in any case 3 questions they were now talking about. He asked to sit down next to him and also let the magical power flow, so as soon as she felt it, he asked her to tell him about it. Yuika couldn't believe it, for could she really be felt? However, our hero said that since she wanted it more, she should do it, asked her to close her eyes, and also warned her that he would touch her. If all this wasn't enough, then he would then increase the full power, so at one point Yug screamed that her back was hot, that she felt something, so Minato said that this was the perception of magic. I realized that what Minato was talking about before is most likely the perception of magic, so Minato said that I will always be able to feel it, then will be able to detect it, and therefore see the magical power of natural objects. The first thing to do is to strive for it. She said that of course she will be able to handle it, because she is the second daughter of the Mizuha family, so she will be able to handle it quickly. At the same moment, Minato thought that it only worked out after he gave a decent flow of magical power, so it seems that Yuki is such as no talent for magic. But despite that, it was already a week later that she was talking about how she wasn't doing well. Our hero couldn't believe that it had been a whole week of serious practice, and she still hadn't gotten the basics down. But despite all that, they would have a duel soon enough, so he decided to channel the magic flow once more. At that moment when our hero was already sending out a new stream of mana, Yuika was able to see it all. She could see what was actually surrounding them. She thought that she could probably see our hero's mana now, but as soon as she looked at it, she noticed that it was almost invisible. But why? But despite all this, our hero said to her or what they're well done, also that she did such a good job. Of course Yuika began to blush, and also forgot about what she was thinking a second ago, so told her that it was nothing special that she had it so quickly. Of course not. Since the first stage has come to an end, our hero said that after she has learned to perceive mana, now it is necessary to learn to control it. It is very important to keep track of the amount of mana used. After all, her task is to use mana as efficiently as possible, because if you use up all the mana, then over time it will recover and its amount will increase. So since they're learned to perceive mana, there should be no problem with control. Minato said that this is the basis, may not believe him. But Yuika already this time said that he completely trusts Minato. So it was at this moment that Minato said that it is already possible to prepare for the next stage. He asked to prepare for battle, or rather attack him. At the same moment decided to use her water discs, which Minato simply blocked with his shield. Minato said that this is a rank 1 ability without an elemental magic barrier, because if Yuika cannot break even him, then the older sister is definitely no longer defeat. Yuika thought that she could do it, so she started her attack again at the same moment, but Minato kept instructing her, telling her to keep moving, because if she stops, she will lose against the mage. After a long fight, Yuika fell to the floor, saying that she couldn't do it anymore. But Minato just covered her with a towel and said that now it was his turn, because besides, if she learned to control mana, she wouldn't need to cast a spell. He showed her the difference between the two. First he showed her how she uses magic and then how Minato does. Yuika noticed that her mom was dissipating, but Minato was not. Minato told her that you can use magic without casting spells if you just know how to control man, that's what they will learn. Yuika could not believe it. But Minato warned her that it would be too difficult for her, because first you need to learn how to simply reduce spells, and after that when she learns everything, who can completely abandon them. After all, once so the spell, she will get a significant advantage in battle, and also save a lot of mana while reading them. After saying that, she realized that she would then become stronger, and Minato said that it was a great conclusion to this, so Minato suggested to start again. She couldn't believe it, because she expected them to rest some more, but Minato said that they need to consolidate the skills they have learned, also the knowledge, otherwise there would be no point in it. Our hero pointed the ability at her and said to act as if you were on the verge of death. Yuika was so frightened after all this that she just fell to the floor, there wasn't even a soul left in her. Our hero didn't know how to support a person, so he said to keep it alive until the end, because they still need to do it almost every day. Yuika in turn that she didn't hear that. That same evening, as soon as our hero was released from training, he immediately went to Harajuku. He realized that even there are monsters, but how many of them do not exterminate, they do not become less. Our hero did not even realize where it all leads to. At one point he noticed that one of the monsters wanted to attack the girl, so at this point headed for him. He asked if it was a girl, but the only thing it did was to just take a picture of Minato without even asking what kind of people even went. He realized that next time he would have to go out only with a mask, because otherwise he will definitely be noticed. The next morning the training was in full swing again. Yuika was also exhausted as usual, but the competition was just a few days away. Even though there was at least a paragraph, but Yuika was losing to her older sister in everything. He didn't even think at this rate she could beat her sister. Rise said that I had been told many times to give up, that she was much weaker than her sister, that she was in no way better than her. She had already given up a lot of things to herself, but she would definitely not give up magic. Minato said that even that wouldn't be enough to definitely win, and what Yuika replied was for Minato to be even tougher, for the training to be much more exhausting than it is now. Minato said while smiling that in that case he definitely wouldn't hold back, that it would be easier for her. At the same moment, day after day, also Minato continued his training until the evening, until Yuika completely passed out, so Minato had to carry her on his back. So one day our hero said that she succeeded in breaking the barrier, which made her very happy. Our hero praised her for something great, she had done a great job. They were both pleased with the work they had done. The day of the magic competition came. Our hero was checking the readiness of Yuki, but at the same moment in front of our hero stood people he did not know exactly. They were reporters who wanted to interview Yuki. They wanted her to say a few words to the press about the upcoming duel in magic, dressed in conflict with her older sister. Our hero realized that of course the battle between the sisters of the Mizuha family will definitely make a lot of noise. But is it really just about the battle between the students? Is it really about the prominence of the lineage of the magical aristocracy? Yes, and as soon as our hero entered the field, he noticed that the scale was too large. But even so, Yuika replied that magical duels were rare, so it was a whole event for people, so at that very moment they were called to the stage. Minato noticed that she was worried, so he asked her to do her best, so she calmed down at that moment and realized that they would succeed. Yuika thought Minato was an amazing man, because it was his words that were right in her heart and gave her hope and strength. As soon as came out on the field, then she met face to face with her older sister, who was surprised that her younger, but despite the fact that the older sister was surprised, she still believed that Yuika cannot. But to hold the victory, in front of her stood a man like her older sister, whom she could never defeat. But despite all these words, Yuika was confident in herself. What made her older sister believe was that Yuika had grown up a bit in these few weeks. Even though Yuika realized that her older sister was strong, it was even scary to think about the difference in magic power, but she would definitely not back down. So at this very moment, as soon as she thought about it, then the magic duel had already begun. She started to use a short spell reading and also constantly started to move. This was exactly what Minato had taught her, however due to nerves, so the advantage in spell reading speed was lost. But as soon as he used the first time his ability, he noticed that I somehow managed to compensate. She realized that she became stronger. At the same moment, even her older sister noticed that compared to what she was before, she had definitely succeeded, and did so because of some 2 weeks. She thought that her older sister was praising her, but at the same moment Ruka decided to ruin the moment. She said that there was nothing to be happy about. This analysis was a comparison. It was definitely not praise, so she decided to increase the rank of her ability, so she used a second rank ability. At the same moment, Yuika simply couldn't block it, so she flew backwards. Minato realized that if it was a spell speed contest, then Yuika would definitely have a better chance of winning, but she was definitely outmatched by her opponent. Ruka in turn, as he approached Minato, he asked him, does he not want to help? Found the hero stood up for Yuika before. Minato said that there was no need, since Yuika was on her feet. Ruka couldn't believe it, because she thought it was a direct hit by the second ranked ability, because all she has is magic. Let her lose, so she started her new attack at that moment, thinking that she was going to win without giving up, but after that flurry of her abilities, she just shut down. The commentator said that Yuika's Magi was completely exhausted, so the victory was her older sister's. Yuika was very upset as she realized that it didn't work out. Our hero realized that this was a competition whose outcome depended on the amount of magic used according to the coordination of magic power, and Yuika lost in the difference of the amount of magic power itself. The older sister said that on this now everything is clear, that this girl has no talent, so magic, then our hero should have realized this from the beginning. Our hero in turn rose and said that it is in fact true that she has no talent, she is awkward, there is no special success, understanding of the essence also suffers, yes, and the performance also came out weak. But despite that, she is the one who has the perseverance, because she practiced every single day, to the point of stupidity, but she practiced. Ruka said that in front of our hero's eyes was the very result she was trying to achieve. But our hero replied that even though she really lost, but he likes such hard-working people, just like Yuika. Tears began to accumulate in Yuika's eyes, she couldn't hold anything back, and Minato said that she was his student, so he wouldn't bring them to speak badly. It was after that Yuika picked up and cried. Ruku in turn said that it is a great honor for someone whose magic power index is 100, but Minato said that this magician, or rather he, whose index is 100 Justin, will defeat Ruku. The hand said that Minato is not the first time to speak so arrogantly, but it is the will of Minato, but despite all this, the opponent of Minato will not be her, because it will be the same guy who our hero saw last time. As soon as the guy appeared in the arena, the hand asked to finish the whole thing as quickly as possible. So while he was carrying Yuika in his arms, he told the girl to keep a close eye on the fight. In addition, while our hero was still carrying her and also put her on the table, poor Yuika noticed that her tired body no longer hurt and there were no bruises. Our hero in turn realized that it would have to look simple to everyone, so fighting at full strength was simply not possible. Magical power should definitely be no stronger than that indicator, which everyone knew about, and also, there will definitely be a fight without the elements, as well as without reading spells. And since we have to do without a magical barrier, a direct hit of magic can simply kill our hero. No matter how you look at this whole situation, but such conditions cannot help but make everyone worried. At this moment, that very guy was saying for our hero to understand him, but that guy wouldn't hold back, but Minato also said that he wouldn't hold back. All the students from the bleachers were shouting that the high school student just taken spare Minato, and Minato noticed that the strength index of the kid against whom he intended to fight exceeds 8,000. Under normal circumstances, there would be no problem, but now that Minato's strength index is 100, one mistake could cost him his life. So at this very moment, everyone announced that the second duel was starting now. They were told that it was already time to start. At the same moment, the man was anticipating the moment when he will face our hero in the fight, and also thought about the fact that our hero coped with the hooligans alone, so now he will check it all without a blow. After all, everything will depend on whether our hero can withstand his attacks, or just take and pass out at the first opportunity. The high school student was about to launch his spell into the battle, while starting to cast spells and create more and more circles, hoping to finish it all at once. But our hero immediately shot him in the forehead, saying that he was too late, so a second later the high school student was lying on the floor unconscious. Everyone could not expect that the victory was for Minato, so at this time the hall just exploded, because is this really it? Did the high school student really lose consciousness from a single blow? Ruka also didn't hear Minato read any spell. What was this shenanigans in the first place? However, once Ruka began to look at her ally, then our hero told her that he finished quickly, somehow, and demanded that it is incredibly cool, because he is the rights of a high school student, but the hand realized that Minato is probably worth something. He even noticed that Hand's strength was already up to 10,000, so even stronger than the kid he had killed. At the same moment it was announced that the composition of the second contest has taken changes. On the fighting abilities of Minato is an incredible hope, because the participant who won this round will be just and determine the victory of the team. It was at this point that the second duel began. Minato began to cast his spells as his hand continued to cast its own. It was with this score of 100 that Minato simply couldn't do anything. Of course the power was incredibly low. Therefore, if he didn't aim for the head, there would be practically no effect. However, despite that, Hand began to dodge everything. Yuika was already ready to accept Minato's defeat. But at the same moment, she noticed that there wasn't a single bruise after Ruka's attack. It even looked like our hero didn't use magic at all. What did our hero do that the hand got hit and Minato didn't even get wet? At this moment, Yuika also wanted to know what Minato had done. She realized that she would find out. The next attack of Minato, our hero just dodged, which caused incredible surprise to Ruka. At the same moment, Yuika noticed that magic is opposed to magic, even though there is a difference in strength, that our hero somewhat reduces it. However, when it comes to the second rank, the speed and mass is different. Everyone realized that our hero shouldn't just be able to dodge. Minato has no sense of fear at all. From the outside, it looks like our hero is thinking it over. Everyone knew that it was possible if someone had the ability to sense and track magical power, that she was using the third rank ability, Azure Surge. Everyone couldn't believe that someone would use the third rank. Our hero would definitely be in trouble if he was directly attacked. Ruka thought that as soon as the surge went off that Minato wouldn't be able to come back from such a thing, but this time too, she just got hit in the forehead with a shot. She couldn't believe the fact that our hero was just unharmed. How did he even get out? But our hero said he used a magical stoke that absorbs magic and just went through her. Ruka was shocked. After all, did our hero really just walk through? She laughed, saying that it was a complete defeat for her, so at the same moment it was announced that victory was for the participant Kusanagi, that is Minato. At the same moment, Yuika ran to Minato saying that they had finally won. But the hand was saying that as she had promised, she would no longer interfere. Now her sister could do absolutely anything she wanted. Minato said that Yuiki's bruises were quite light. It even seemed to be that the hand gave in, but Minato of course not. She blushed and said something that wasn't true, but Minato said that her little sister had gained strength in 2 weeks. He said that Ruka realized it herself, but wasn't it time to stop being overprotective? At the same moment when our hero said those words, then Yuika said that she would become even stronger, so strong that her sister wouldn't have to worry. So at that same moment, Minato noticed that both sisters started to have a two sisters dialogue between them. But despite this pleasant atmosphere, our hero felt a foreign magic, most likely the approach of disaster. At that moment, while everyone was watching all the situations that were happening on the field, the same hooligans tried to find something in our hero's briefcase. However, as soon as they tried to find something, they noticed that our hero only had one textbook. They even realized that there must be something there because our hero is definitely hiding something. After all, how could Kusanagi even use such magic? At that moment one of the hooligans shouted something, so everyone thought that he found something bags our hero, but at the same moment noticed that the sky turned red. No one could not understand what was happening, so at that moment they realized that most likely it is a disaster. Everyone looked at it in amazement. Many were afraid of what could happen to them, because it could be a real disaster. Our hero also could not understand. Because why did the disaster begin at all? Is it due to the fact that they are on Shinjuku? After all, the first disaster also started there, coincidence or not, but everyone tried to keep calm. It was our hero at the same moment began to use his magic, and then asked everyone to calm down, because at the beginning of the disaster only small monsters appear. He said that everything will be fine if he acts 3 times. He asked everyone to evacuate to the gymnasium. Moving in groups, isolation is very dangerous. Our hero was asked, what is he even going to do here? However, to everyone's surprise, he said only that his father to save the remaining people who remained in the school building. The teacher said that this is reckless because he was going to go alone, but at the same moment a high school student said that he would also go with our hero, because if everything is just as our hero said, there will be no problems. The teacher realized that our hero could absolutely pull it off, so he only asked for one thing, that no one engage in heroics. Kusanagi walked up to Yuika and told him that he had to go. The girl was worried about him, but at the same moment, the senior said that he would be the first to go since he was already in his 2nd year. They said that for them, high school students, 100 meters to run 10 seconds can easily. He thought that our hero will not be able to keep up with him. But as soon as he looked back, he noticed that at the same moment our hero used magic circles with the help of which I moved with great speed. Our hero said that they would go first, not him alone, so at this very moment between the high school student and our hero was a kind of competition, because they wanted not only to save everyone, but also to look at the real strength of each other. Our hero, until they saw this conversation, realized that the index of magical power in the school building 58. But it is even possible that there are people who do not possess magic. So it was in this case that our hero flew into the window, where there were already wolves, and also began to straighten them out. He realized that he would just have to go around in the entire building, despite the very hordes of monsters, which kept coming at our hero from behind. What was the situation of the school anyway? However, as soon as the high school student noticed that the monsters were defeated, then our hero said he was the one he trusted to evacuate. Wanted to object, and fight against the monsters alone is too dangerous. But as soon as he looked at our hero, who noticed that he was no longer in his place, he just disappeared somewhere. So at this very moment, the high school student was a little embarrassed, because he thought that he is the abuser for our hero. Because the truth was nothing to even object, because of a few seconds Kusanagi killed a huge crowd of such creatures. Who is our hero? Our hero, while he continued to monitor the situation in the school, thought that if outside the wall can deal with magic projectiles once, but indoors they can hit students, so there was nothing else but to kill them at a measured pace, low-level magic. He continued to use his magic time, after which the students were simply delighted with it. But our hero, continuing to save everyone, realized that after saving that every time escorts them to the gym would be a waste of time. So at that very moment realized that it would just be much easier for him to carry them with the help of magic. Everyone who continued to fight on the street, or rather a high school student, noticed the students who rose into the air. He realized that it was most likely our hero who did such a thing. But our hero, who was watching from the side, realized that others were also doing very well. He even thought that everyone else would do well. But as soon as he thought about it, he noticed that there were still people he hadn't saved, who were still in danger. It was the girl on the stairs who was screaming for someone to help her. She was already willing to accept that there would be no help. She can't realize that she had been saved just like last time, the same light she saw there in the alley. She looked at our hero, a little confused, for was it really our hero who had saved her? Our hero didn't see anything wrong with it, so he said it was of course his handiwork. The girl asked, after all, was it really our hero then, too? Our hero, a little liked, replied that of course it was him, so at the same moment the girl bowed to him and said that she was very grateful to him because our hero saved her 2 times. In turn, Kusanagi said that she did not worry because it was nothing special. She was very blushing from the whole situation, but their conversations were interrupted by a high school student who tried to catch up with our hero, incredible tired at that. He already wanted to save another person, but our hero only said that the girl should follow this guy because he will take her, poor and unhappy, to a safe place. The girl wanted to say something to our hero while trying to catch up with him and also blushing enough, but our hero already ran away as he usually does in such cases. He realized that there were still a decent number of people who needed his help immediately, and there was no time for them to wait for the police. Is there any way that will help to save them somehow faster? But just at this moment, when the situation reached the rest of the Congress, one of the bigwigs said that there was a disaster at the Academy of Divine Magic. The whole Congress was shocked because in their country wasn't the catastrophe 50 years ago. There shouldn't have been more of them, and what are the next actions of their president? But despite all this, the president said that they were contacting the aristocracy and the central division of the police department to fight the monsters. The ground forces should have been prepared by now as well. The Congress still continued to complain, for they were saying that in the matter of the disaster, the self-defense force consisted of only mages alone, but they didn't have the means of defense and self-defense that were capable of fighting monsters at this moment. The president understood that this was the downside of the peaceful situation after the disaster, as most of the military expenditure was spent on defense and international affairs, and the only ones who could do anything in the fight against the monsters were their magical police and magical aristocracy, who most likely wouldn't even respond. The director pounded the table in despair as he realized that if the same thing happened 50 years ago, they wouldn't have Ichikami Minato, the holy mage, with them. At this point, we can see that the policemen who are rushing to the scene of the accident, they also can't believe that the disaster has really started again. They thought about the fact that nothing happened for 50 years, they had a peaceful situation, no problems, but on this account there are police officers who have to cope with everything on their own. That person was the police inspector from the central division of the police department's monster police department, and along with him sat a Senata police officer. At the same moment, a report was coming from a helicopter through a huge loudspeaker to tell everyone that a disaster had begun at the Divine Magic Academy, that the sky had turned red and monsters were appearing one after another. The reporter also interviewed not only the students but also the teachers, but the other teachers who definitely didn't want to take part in such conversations said that of their opponents only magical beasts, so they wouldn't be able to cope if they joined forces. Everyone noticed, while looking at the phone, that the students and teachers were doing their best, but there were so many monsters that it would be impossible to leave the academy. Many people thought about the fact that this academy is very close to them, which means that the monsters may be near them, so everyone wanted to run. Many who watched from their homes saw all this. Everyone was worried about it. Our hero in turn realized that the place he was in was swarming with monsters. It was probably already gradually heading towards the second phase, which would definitely be much more difficult than the first phase, given the fact that they now have very weak mages who can almost nothing to counter. After all, the emerging monsters are getting stronger as the phases progress. At the same time, monsters how many do not kill, less does not become until you do not defeat the boss, which of course will be stronger than all the others, which means that the monsters will continue to appear out of nowhere. Later in turn appears in the last phase, you just need to hold out until then. He realized that disaster is indeed a troublesome matter. By this point, as our hero finished thinking, he noticed that he had only gathered 20 people, because they are scattered throughout the building, so the rescue is very tight. But where did our hero need to go next? By this point, we can see that the same bully who tried to find something interesting in the briefcase our hero has almost been defeated by the monster. His entire squad was crying that again they met the guardian, that our hero would definitely kill him with a blow, so why cannot the bully? Well, as soon as the bully thought about it, our hero appeared and said that the bully is just weak. That is the reason why the bully cannot do anything. At this point, when our hero left turned in his direction, the bully jumped out very upset. Because our hero saved again, he asked our hero to wait. Because why did he save? Because shouldn't our hero just hate them? But our hero said that no reason for that. He helped the subject as much as he could. The bully almost just lost his temper. He could not believe that our hero even misspoke. He could not believe every word of Kusanagi. The bully began to shout that our hero is not fooling around, because he was talentless, almost no magic, could not even use, but how did he become so strong? However, at the same moment, our hero replied that the past owner of his body died when he was in a traffic accident, but the man who sits in his body just reborn. Tadano shouted that death should not have made our hero strong, because the bully should have been stronger than our hero. Why did our hero was able to achieve this? To our hero all these words were funny, because the bully was definitely not strong, because the strong do not oppress the weak oppresses all those who are weaker than them. The feeling of superiority can make you mistakenly believe that someone is strong, because the reality of the bully does not even think about now to fight with our hero. So after these words the bully just fell on his knees. He understood, he realized that he was running away. He was running away from the fact that since the time of standing not school his strength has not really grown. He bullied the weak to vent his anger because he could, but then he was saved by the very same Kusanagi who used to be not only weak, but the worst. The bully just didn't want to accept all of this reality. The hooligans wanted to support their leaders. They talked about being saved again by Kusanagi, but looking at their leader, then famous or that one was sobbing, just like a baby, standing on his knees. He realized that he was definitely wrong. He picked up his mistakes that he had made recently. Meanwhile, while the bully continued to cry, our hero continued to deal with all the monsters left and right. He kept using spell after spell to make the monsters' skulls shatter. Even as he was killing the guards at this rate, he realized that the number of guards was just increasing at this rate, so at this very moment, he asked everyone in the class to calm down and everything would be fine from now on. Discontented was only one person, the same high school student who could not believe that our hero just took and dumped everything on him. Even though the high school student is doing a great job, he said that he would protect, because you should just calm down and follow him. In turn, everyone thought him that one might be their real brother. However, despite all this, the high school student realized that the critters were too many. He didn't even know how to cope. However, as soon as he thought about it, at the same moment our hero appeared behind him and offered a little help if the high school student could not cope. Sasha Cast asked him not to scare him like that next time. However, despite all this, our hero only said something that you will be fine when he dealt with the remaining monsters. The high school student was talking about how our hero definitely can handle so many that it would be better to find another way. But at that very moment when those words were spoken, then all the monsters were killed. Everyone stood in confusion, but it was our hero who asked them to start moving, because they didn't even have time to think, to at least stand for a while. As the students began to run away, then the high school student only thought that our hero was just incredibly cool. In turn, when he realized that everyone was gone, he realized that it was probably time for him to go back to scout the school building, where his teacher kept talking about not letting the students give up, because they could still overpower everyone. Yuika was also in the same squad where the teacher told them to do their best, but at one point she just ran out of energy, so her older sister caught her at that moment and told her that she should not be a burden. However, as soon as she said that, Yuika replied that she would fight despite everything, because there was definitely no time to rest now. As soon as the teacher noticed the high school student, he said that he had done a great job, but despite all of this, all the students were already at their limit. Yuika, even though a lot of people were saved, was only worried about one person, our hero. So the high school student said that he was fine because he had too much strength and our hero was too cool so they could overcome the disaster with him. Yuika also thought that she thought so too, that they would definitely get through with him. But as soon as they were on a happy note, some fire particles began to fly around. The teacher asked everyone to hide in the shelter, because it was too dangerous. Many monsters began to appear out of nowhere, but the high school student realized that it was too dangerous now, much more dangerous than it was before. However, at this moment, when Yulka tried to run away, it turned around because behind her was a monster. As soon as Yulka realized that it was really so, the policemen had already arrived. They said that they would immediately proceed to exterminate the monsters because the priority was just the safety of all citizens. All the students were thinking that they were saved because the police had arrived, so at the same moment the man was saying that all the students would need to evacuate as instructed. Yuika in turn said that they would fight as well. The policemen said that they couldn't because they needed to evacuate, and also that they were ordinary citizens. But despite all this, Yuika as well as Ruka said that they were not ordinary people but mages. So at that very moment, the policeman said that it was good then because he hoped for cooperation and also asked to attack them with a stylus. To be honest, even the policemen realized that they definitely lacked Ruku, so the tasks would be made easier if they had some new mages. This was definitely a pathetic fact for the entire police force, so while everyone continued their attack on the monsters, that same Sarada continued to heal all the injured students. Our hero in turn understood that everything is fine now because the police finally arrived. He will fully trust the situation to them. But the reality is that the police arrived before the self-defense troops, But the disaster is a state-level incident, and there is no reason for the state to not prepare measures for this case. Our hero was even afraid that it could be possible, because in this country where the world is driven to madness. But despite the fact that no matter what, he definitely had to do what he should do, he decided that it was time to save the remaining students. As soon as our hero went to find the remaining ones, the reporters noticed that the number of monsters also began to only increase. But whether only the police can even cope with it, because all the citizens were waiting for the magical aristocracy to finally arrive. All the students who were not in the school where our hero thought that it is incredibly cool that in their time there is a magical aristocracy, they all wanted to see it. All thought about that magical aristocracy will help us, after all they pay taxes on them, they all wanted you to come faster. But at this moment, we see the magical aristocrat, the current head of the Fuka family, he asked to be left alone. His butler asked him to think twice, after all the disaster is small scale and the police can handle it. But there is no need for the magical aristocrat to help, so at this very moment, the same guy with green hair said that he is very tired, he will go to bed. All the police realized that the situation was getting worse and worse each time, but would they even be able to clear the surroundings of the entrance from the monsters? Everyone was telling him that it was simply impossible because there were too many of them. The policemen realized that the speed at which the monsters appeared was faster than they could imagine, so there was no way to evacuate the citizens. And the self-defense forces are limited to logistical support and are not yet ready for action. Hope remains only on the magical aristocracy, but despite all this there is no contact with her at all. He cried out that in their time there is no magical aristocracy at all, those cannot show a bit of help. Even though the police know all the information, then he couldn't imagine that this disaster would be so complicated. Is this what the people in the past times were up against? What will happen when the boss even appears? Will they all be defeated? So at this very moment, the same boss appeared, who came out of a huge portal. Everyone was frightened because the boss was a demon. Everyone realized that this was the monster that was rarely seen in their time, and only the magical aristocracy could defeat it, the necessary magic of the 5th rank and above. These were the ranks that no one among them could use. The boss had already started casting his spells, which flew straight at Yuika. She was of course covered by her sister, who was able to resist the attack and also covered her back from being hit. Yuika was shocked by such an act, however her hand asked her to just run, as everyone else did. She held her bloody sister in her arms and only asked for help. At this point everyone was asking for help. But by this point a new blow from the boss was already being prepared, a blazing column of rank 5. They thought they were corpses and Yuika prayed for our hero to appear and save them again. She shouted it so loud that at the same moment, while the boss already wanted to use his prepared ability, then our hero said that he apologized for being late. He appeared so he asked her to understand that he made her wait. At this time, despite the fact that Yuika was crying, they say for our hero to help not only but also her sister. Then on the hero said that it was okay because her sister passed out and nothing else. Everyone around them lay passed out, which made our hero grit his teeth. Most likely it reminded him of the old days. He stood up abruptly and headed towards the voice. He said he would overpower it. At this moment, as Yuika tried to chase those words away in her head, at the same moment, circles began to form under everyone who was near Yuika. Yuika didn't understand what our hero was even doing. After all, was there really early healing underneath all of them? Even at this very moment, while the police officers were looking at all this, they were very surprised, because it was a 3rd rank holy magic, a holy trouble even the police officers of the name possessed. And at that moment, that same Sarada ran out to check on everyone else, were they intact. So as soon as she came out, she noticed that her friend by profession and said that the magical power was already exhausted, but by some miracle he was able to survive. The Sarada did not raise what was going on, however understood one thing, that they need to protect the citizens, because even though it is reckless or dangerous, they must fight, otherwise everyone will be killed. At this moment Joy gave away with all the fear. However, the man said that the police had already been destroyed, not the self-defense troops, not the magical aristocrats. They will come, they are definitely at a standstill, so there is nothing else left but to go fight. At this moment, everyone began to realize that there must be some mistake. After all, the police had been defeated for some reason. All the reporters and thought that this was the end. There was no use from the magical aristocracy either. No one could fight, no one could defeat these monsters. However, that same moment they noticed that it was our hero who was approaching the boss. They thought that if he was acting so recklessly, then he wanted to die. They shouted at him to get out of there. But despite all these words, our hero still went to the boss and as soon as he approached, said that he was too much of a willful. It certainly did not like it. He talked about beating our hero. He showed it with his whole look, so everyone felt this thirst for death. There was an explosion, but our hero had already started to activate his abilities. Absolutely all the animals began to launch charges at him, and our hero took it too seriously during the world catastrophe. But now it is necessary to be calmer so as not to spread fear on the surrounding people. Everyone thought that our hero was dead because he was hit by several charges, but then they noticed that he was unharmed. He continued to use his holy magic. He continued to beat the Data Aura boss, who was screaming in agony. No one understood what was going on. Who was our disciple at all? All the reporters also began to say that it was the disciple who was fighting the monsters. Even though no face could be seen, they wanted to get closer. However, as soon as they already wanted to move their camera, a water disc flew into it, which was launched by Yuika. She realized that our hero was most likely hiding his, so now how calm can she be? Everyone thought our hero was incredibly cool. They thought they were saved, but at the same moment they were approached by wolves. They were already thought that too early rejoiced. But you at the same moment of there again policeman, because he said that there was a job here and for them, so they will not stand aside. They decided to help our hero. Our heroes watched for all this situation from the outside and thought that the modern police too is not badly coping, so at the same moment continued to strike blow after blow at the monster. He was so sick of the monster that it was shouting in anger. He began to use incredible 6th rank magic of the level of the magical aristocracy. It was at this moment that everyone thought that there was nothing they could do about it, because it was the dragon flame. They thought that they were already going to die. Well, once the ability flew, once the policeman prepared to receive it with his body. While everyone was praying that they would all survive, this year's that our hero was not strong enough to resist that rank magic. It was simply impossible to defeat this thing. The only person who openly believed in this, the belief that Kusanagi could do it, was Yuika, because she believed him. She thought that he would win no matter what. In turn thought about neither one nor the other. He only noticed that the mass was a giant, but very slow, because the demon who was opposite him did not once, especially using the 6th rank, even though that one had turned out to be unreasonable. But our hero with the 2nd rank was simply not able to defeat him. Our hero didn't want to draw attention to himself, but for that matter, he would have to use magic synthesis, a rank 4 ability, Snake Storm. The policeman couldn't believe his eyes as he saw a giant water snake in front of him, and fusion magic. By now the two abilities were clashing in a fight, as if the dragon was fighting the water snake, but the demon was thinking only of killing. It was his bloodlust that allowed him to control the dragon. Our hero in turn thought about something else. He calmly exhaled. He continued to control his snake, so that at the same moment the boss was struck down. He realized that the self-control in that demon was definitely not laid out, so that was why he lost. Even though it was a clean victory from our hero, he still thought that it would take much longer, but that one turned out to be much weaker than our hero could have imagined. Kusanagi looked up at the sky and noticed that it was back to its normal color. It seems that after defeating the boss the disaster has passed, so now we can calm down. But looking back we see that all the students are in shock, because they were already ready to die several times. But each time we had something in the way. Who you saved them, and now the demon, who was supposed to kill them, defeated the very guy, our hero. They were all rejoicing, because the boss was defeated. They were crying with happiness, because now everything is alright, the disaster has actually passed. But the policeman could not believe, still could not believe that the demons defeated the student, because with him would not even cope with the magical aristocracy. What is our hero? He'd noticed that it seems that his legs do not hold him at all, so that the same moment fell to the floor. Our hero at the same moment turned to Yuika and said that he was already finished, so it's fine. At the same moment, Yuika began to cry, because she was expressing real gratitude to our hero for saving her. Well, of course, this beautiful note of guys and girls experienced the rest of the guys and girls, who began to run up to him and talk about the fact that he saved everyone, that everyone is talking about him. Even that he was transferred to S class. Well, at the same moment, while he was interrupted by girls, who also began to hit on him instead of guys, while asking how in general our hero became so strong. Is it really in him flows blood and aristocrats? One of the students started talking about how our hero had constellated, so everyone immediately attacked him. That was the chance for our hero to escape from that very place. After leaving the classroom he met Yuika, who told our hero that it seems that he is in trouble. Our hero asked her not to make fun of him, because he already has a lot of problems, the girl said, or that it is obvious. Because our hero saved everyone, there was nothing to be done about it, and he was transferred to the real S class. She talked about how it was all thanks to Excellent on the duel because of the involvement in the disaster. Our hero asked, isn't Yuika happy for him? A little flushed she confided that she was happy, and there is one person there. But even so, Kusanagi asked, how are they getting along with her older sister? Have they started to communicate with her more than before? At this point, they made small talk, during which we could learn that the relationship between the sisters began to get better, and it was only because of our hero. Yuika told him thank you, because it was all because our hero was around. Well, as soon as she finished, our hero slapped her forehead with his palm so that even the sound could be heard. Yuika couldn't understand why our hero did that. But Kusanagi replied that once is enough for gratitude, because you don't need to thank someone every time. At the same moment we can notice that in front of us sits the president, who continues to talk about teleconference as well as cooperation with other countries. Despite all this, despite the fact that his side needs help, the other countries said they are very busy. So at the same moment they decided to talk about some student, most likely our hero, who had defeated the boss. He was told that the place where everything was happening was in chaos and the policeman almost passed out, so there must be some mistake. The president in turn said that the heads of the countries had also questioned it, which goes without saying, because no matter what, the magical aristocracy should be sent back to their homeland, as well as holding a conference on how to prepare for the next disaster. By the time our hero was approaching the high school students, he noticed that Ruka had asked him for one request. She asked him to take her as his student. A few days earlier, before this very moment, we can notice that Yuika and also her older sister were sitting on the same veranda. They say that it was our hero who stopped the disaster, so Yuika confirmed all this information. She said that Kusanagi used rank 4 magic synthesis in doing so. Ruka might have thought that this was impossible, because 4th rank synthesis can't even be used by almost all supreme mages. But despite that, Yuika kept saying that it was all true, so at that same moment Han said that she believed her because her sister was always decent, honest, incapable of lying, kind, serious and diligent. That's why Ruka thought that she shouldn't be a mage without talent, but it seems her approach was too cruel. Yuika glared at her with her eyes, but at the same moment, she said that she would become even stronger, so much so that big sister could be at ease for her. Ruka was stunned by these words, so she confirmed that her sister was already quite mature, but realized that the real strength of our hero was not the level of a schoolboy, probably even stronger than their father. So she asked her younger sister for a favor, because she realized that if I take into account the current situation, she was an advanced mage at best, so she needed the help of our hero to become even stronger. At this very moment, on the very same platform, we are back to that very same conversation, where she timidly talked about apologizing in advance for insulting Kusanagi, and also looked down on him, and really was sorry, despite even though it is a request selfishly, she, no matter how ashamed, still asked to take her as an apprentice. However, as soon as she finished speaking, it was our hero who immediately agreed, which caused her to have a bunch of questions. She couldn't understand why our hero even agreed so quickly. But in spite of all this, our hero thought I was strange, because if she asked for it, why not accept it? That she was cruel to our hero all this time, so thought our hero would not agree. Our heroes explained that one apologized, so our hero decided to ask her. She asked, so he accepted her request, that's all. This same other high school student asked to be our hero's student, so he also accepted it without any difficulty, because 1 or 2 there is no difference at all. Han standing puzzled, so Yuika told her what our hero is like, such a person. Just such an amazing guy was now standing in front of them, so at the same moment, in the conference in the hall, the police officers and the Central Division of the Monster Control Office came to them. First, they began by thanking them, for they thanked them from the bottom of their hearts. If not for our hero, then they as well as all the citizens would have been killed. Then, throughout the police interrogation, those police officers once again many times expressed words of gratitude, but our hero asked them to stop, because he was wondering what business they even came for this time. They said that it was the right time to start, so they said that they had already finished the investigation of the recent accident, but they still had not very few points of interest, because they could not believe that the ability in our hero awakened after the car accident. They thought that there is no doubt about it, because they have the testimony of the people around him. But there is also such a testimony that the accident as if changed his personality. Police officer began to say that not only the character has changed, but also magical abilities have become unusually strong, so strong that he is able to defeat the demon. At the same moment Yuika started screaming and then that it didn't matter, so the policeman decided it was time to change the question. He asked our hero if he knew the magician in black. Our hero asked what the name meant. So at this point the policeman said that this is a magician who lurks at night, who kills monsters and helps people in trouble. Videos were spread all over the internet, did not understand how it was even related to our hero. So the policeman said that he was similar not only in appearance, but also that judging by all in black is that still a master. Few magicians are able to do such a thing at such a young age. In addition, the date of his activity is close to the same date when our hero was discharged from the hospital. And the use of magic on the streets without authorization or qualification is illegal, because the future student of the academy, our hero has a certain freedom of action at the discretion of the academy. But in the case of such widespread publicity, the police have no choice but to act. A single expulsion from the institution will not do the case, but if our hero confesses, they will do everything possible to reduce the punishment. So asked our everyone was like, so the police once again asked, is our hero really the mage in black? But our hero said he was not, so the policeman immediately apologized for the disturbance, began to pack back up. As soon as the conspiracies came out, the policeman could not believe that our hero did not have the slightest hesitation, if he even is the mage in black. Then the courage he certainly does not take. It was even hard to believe that our hero is just a high school student, because all that he has behind his back certainly cannot give rest to others. But in spite of all this, the policewoman was sure that our hero is the mage in black, because the voice of the atmosphere around him is similar, as his nocturnal activity has the purpose of helping the needy. After all, she could not exactly tell the supervisor his true identity. She may be removed from her position as a police officer, but she does not think that since our hero saved her, it means that he is definitely a good person. At the same moment the goals of the police officers changed. The girl wanted to hide the real face of our hero, but the man with all his heart wanted to know who was hiding under the mask with the name of the magician in black. As soon as the police left, then our hero and Yuika were introduced to their new class, because from that day they will be studying in the second year of Class S. Everyone asked to be careful with them, but as soon as our hero sat down at the desk, then everyone began to approach him and ask about the demon, but Yuika was asked about life in the walls of the magical aristocracy. But at that moment, when the teacher noticed the crowd, she asked everyone to finish, so the lesson began. Our hero rubbed his head. If when the break came, he realized that before it he was showered with a barrage of questions. This is one of the reasons why he did not want to stand out. But as soon as our hero was walking down the corridor, he was approached by the very girl he had saved. She asked our hero to step back for a moment. In a moment our hero was already on the roof with this girl, and what was he doing there? Is there any custom why he is called there so often? But despite all this we realized that there was not only our hero, also that girl, but also Yuika, who wanted to practice alone, but there was Minato with some girl. What were they doing? To begin with, the girl asked our hero if he remembered her, but our hero said, or what? That no, do not remember, cannot even remember anything. So the girl explained that she is the same girl he saved during the disaster, and also saved her mage in black, her in the lesson of the real battle when attacked by magical beasts. It was our hero was the mage in black. Our hero began to recall something, so at that very moment, the girl expressed her gratitude to him for saving her 2 times already. Our hero asked and did not pay attention, because he saved her because he could. The girl blushed. Talk about Kusanagi being incredibly cool. Yuika couldn't find a seat, for she wanted to hear something, for she couldn't hear clearly what they were talking about. However, the only thing she heard was that the girl was confessing her feelings to our hero and suggesting that they meet. She talked about the fact that there is no any merit, but it is necessary to do everything possible, so asked our hero for permission to become his girlfriend. Our hero began to talk about thanking her for such feelings for him, but asked him to ask, because he cannot start a relationship, he has things to do. The girl thanked our hero for such a clear answer, yes, thought she could handle everything, except his answer. However, as soon as the girl began to clean up the tears, then our hero asked Yuika to come out of hiding. Yuika thought that she neutralized the magic, so she thought that our hero would not notice her. Despite all this, our hero said that it was obvious that someone was there, and also asked again, seriously, because did she really like peeking that much? Yuika said that she didn't, because she didn't even mean to do it, it was an accident. But why did our hero reject her at all? Doesn't she seem cute to him? But our hero only replied that he was not going to start any relationship with anyone, because first of all the age difference is too big, even though they were not physically the same age. Yuika breathed a sigh of relief, because she realized that our hero does not want to meet anyone, but at the same moment thought, why would she even do it? Because what does it mean that he is not going to meet anyone? While she found behind our hero, she thought about it the whole time. However, at one point our hero turned to her and said that it is necessary to try to regulate the magic power, and that training, our hero looks not enough. As soon as he said that, Yuika made it clear that she herself was aware of it, for she would definitely try her best and become stronger as much as she needed our hero to recognize her. By this point, our hero went outside again, although he finished the disaster, but the monsters definitely did not decrease. Is it not an omen or is it a new one? At this point he heard someone on the street screaming for help. He immediately went there and noticed that it was some bully who was harassing a woman. Our hero immediately went there and decided to help while defeating the bully with a single punch. Once he defeated him, he realized that it was just a mage amateur outlaw. Fighting with other mages, he is also not used to it. At this point he wanted to thank the girl. Our hero immediately left. I understood that all the talk about the very magic in black was just about him, but why is everything so spread? At this point, our hero asked about the wizard in black to all his acquaintances while they were having lunch. All he knows about him is that he only works at night and is also outlawed. It was about the black-robed magician that many students were gossiping, so he was curious. At this point, a high school student said that on the internet too much talk about him. Our hero was surprised by another thing. He was surprised by the word internet. Everyone realized that our hero does not know about their technology in their time, because how can you even know about the internet? Everyone understood that he is far from the worldly vanity, but to so simply could not believe. So they said that the internet go information and communication network that connects the whole world and can be used by anyone, so the information spreads very quickly. If such a thing as pictures, video, so information is very much. They told about the fact that you can watch such a thing on a smartphone is not our hero has it. However, to their surprise, our hero got it. They told him that he needed an application, that our hero got it, and now our hero can use the internet. Despite this happy note of doom said that it was our hero who promised to take them for training. When will they start? So at this point he replied that Gro taught him how to use a smartphone, then offered time after school. However, only one had bad feelings, they were Yuiki. So after a moment we can already notice a terrible picture, absolutely all lying on the floor, despite the fact that this is just the beginning of their training, because now they will do everything as if on the verge of death. All wanted to show our hero what they were capable of, so he asked them to start attacking him again. But at the same moment, in the vicinity of the Tokyo TV tower, something terrible happened, even though nothing portended trouble. No one could believe what was happening, but we can see that they had such a horde of monsters that it was hard to imagine. Our hero could not understand, after all, could not all those were on the limit, could not they use at least one worthwhile ability? However, as soon as those began to use their skills, our said tout immediately repelled them thanks to one ability, one score, and then gave them a smack in the forehead. Yuika thought that our hero had a gap in his defense, but our hero took a dodge and also gave her a forehead strike. Just after that, after the training session ended, our hero called a break. Everyone was waiting for it. High school students could not understand how our hero even became so strong, because so much so that even a hand that is completely academically unable to compete with him. The only one was happy that the level of our hero is really not the level of a beginner, but looking at Minato noticed that his face, as always, as if he was bored with everything, as if he does not want to do anything. He talked about how he almost died in a traffic accident, but when he woke up, he had a power. The cause was unknown, so finding out he asked to be put on hold. Everyone thought that the near-death experience was the reason for the awakening, in which case there was nothing surprising. Our hero was glad that all these high school students are incredibly simple-minded, but only Yuika realized that our hero, with the formation in such a face, only wanted to just get away, because there is probably a reason why he cannot say anything if he is still hiding. So Yuika should stop trying to find out. Our hero in turn thought that they are so simple-minded that they are considered as an open book. Our hero and the same high school student went home together. The high school student was happy to have such a workout, even though our hero praised him that he was strong. The second grader said that he wanted to eat, so when he came home, he would have to cook. Our hero was surprised that he was cooking because he could not tell it from him. High school students were surprised because does our hero eat outside the house? But the one answered that mostly he just eats a bowl of ramen, and it is enough for him. The world has become nowadays very convenient. All this very much surprised that guy, he-9 high school student, because not a healthy lifestyle is sure to destroy our hero. So he offered him to go to him. He prepared something for him. Our hero wanted to refuse at first, but realized that this guy was not only on porous, but also a good comrade, so it did not become to refuse such a thing. At this point, when our hero came to his house, then very small children hung on him. The high school student apologized because he now has to look after the tomboys. At first our hero said that there was nothing wrong with it, but at the same second the children started to rise upwards thanks to magic, as if they were surrounded by some balls. The only thing the high school student said was for our hero, a complete idiot, to stop using magic indoors. After all, somewhere you hear, use magic for fun. Our hero realized that he pissed off, and meanwhile the kids kept asking him to do it again. Our hero couldn't even expect the fact that the same high school student is good with kids. In front of his eyes Minato brought all the pictures he saw during that very disaster. He realized that children are a treasure. The high schooler even asked our hero not to say this, as if he was an old grandfather, but our hero asked that one to be quiet. By this time, when the high school student continued to prepare food, and our hero was busy with the children, the table was already set. All gorged on their brother's cooking. Even our hero said that it was incredibly delicious. How long has he not eaten home-cooked food? After all, while the war was going on, there was no normal food. Our hero wondered what is with the parent, since the high school student is so concerned about his brothers and sisters. But the high school student said that they have no father, but mom works until the night, so the housekeeping and care tomboy on him, and in his spare time, he just works part-time. Our hero noticed that he has a lot to do, but even so, the high school student said that despite the fact that it is difficult for him, he does not complain at all. The more difficult things, the more likely to burn the same high school student. Our hero was lying in bed with him, and the high school student said that our hero asked him that because of the caprices of children had to stay the night. Our hero said that it was okay, because sometimes you can do that. The high school student expressed gratitude, and our hero did not understand why, so the high school student said that the hand has become more luminous than before recently, only thanks to our hero. Our hero thought it was something romantic, so he asked, does he like the hand? But the high school student replied that no way, because he and she just don't fit in. The fact that they spend time together came out by itself. Our hero had these words planted in his head that someone doesn't fit in. He even made an analogy with himself, but the next day, when it was already morning, the two of them were already heading to school, where they were met by both of the Mizuha clan. They told them that you were late, but the high school student said that our hero just couldn't wake up. The two sisters couldn't believe that they had spent the night together, because was this some kind of training? However, by this time, when our hero realized that they had to wait for the meeting, the very police officers came out in front of them and asked to take some of his time. You apologized for distracting our hero, but the policeman said that they have an important matter because the district of Tokyo TV Tower is filled with monsters, and since there is a high probability that it is related to the disaster, they came to ask for the cooperation of our hero, told that he is just an ordinary student. But to this they reply that he is usually the one sitting who just set up the disaster alone and also does not fit into the framework of an ordinary student. To put it frankly, they cannot just deal with it by themselves. After all, it is saying that the police is actually cornered, so they heartily ask our hero to help them. At this very moment, when they thought that our hero would not agree, our hero immediately replied, without even slowing down, that he is certainly ready since they consider him so useful. Our hero would prefer not to be singled out, but he doesn't think he's able to tell them, and the policeman said that of course our hero will get his reward because the policeman will talk to the academy, so he doesn't have to worry. Yuika also talked about how she and her sister would help. They would be supportive and tired, but they were also joined by a high school student. But despite their willingness, the police officer said those can't help us, their eagerness, even though they are at the top of their academy. Because they, that is, the police officers talk about the real level of the real battle, but equal or even the strength of those students of the strength that our hero possesses. All pondered, so realized that it was all true, so at the same moment the police officers replied to go to the academy, and with them will go our hero. At the same time, when our hero was already must get into the car, he turned to his acquaintances and said to the shadows to stand still, with all their might trying to drive him away. Everyone looked at him and immediately their faces changed. I didn't realize they would have to try for this. They were willing to work hard. At the same moment, at the Central Police Department, we were informed that about 100 demons had appeared in the vicinity of Tokyo's St. TV Tower and they needed to be dealt with before they could harm the citizens. They turned to them for help, or rather to the students who took an active part in the recent disaster, annoyed at the academy, that is, our hero, and asked him to stand up. No one could not believe it, how such a boy even got into such a place, but others said that it was he who defeated the boss in the recent incident. The situation is already starting to shit. Then one policeman decided to say that our hero is just the student who stopped the development of the disaster at the academy. After all, it was he, the policeman, who saw his actions up close, and few people are as good as he talked about the fact that it was our hero who took part in the disaster that started the first time, so it was the policeman who considered his cooperation. He asked not to consider our hero as students usually do, treat him as a collaborator. Many people did not like it, of course, many resented it, and in front of them was just a boy, sneaked in where professionals should act. At one point one of the people, quite grown-up people, said that it is true that our hero is still a little boy, but he is not from the environment in which they are used to live, but in spite of that he is doing the same thing they are doing. He immediately said that and again for the immediate start to insult the monsters, and everyone to take their posts. The policeman wanted to approach our hero to ask for forgiveness, but our hero said that everything is fine, understood why everyone treats him like that. The policeman said that our hero is actually grown up. Since he says so, he wanted to look at his assistant, but noticed something shaking with fear. She said that she wanted to stop that group from talking about our hero, but just took it and got scared. But the only thing our hero said was that he'd forget about it because he didn't care, but that's it. Our hero was already sitting in the car with this couple and asked what is their approximate combat power. So at this very moment he was told that there were about 80 mages, most of them of medium level, and the higher ones were only a few people. As far as he remembered, the middle level ones could use magic for the second rank, and the higher level ones up to the third rank. While our hero was thinking about it, the policeman said that of course it is a pity to admit, but our hero is the only one who can use synthesis magic of the 4th rank, and therefore will be the most powerful. Well, as such tactics they certainly did not have, because they have to see the outcome of the battle taking place in the open terrain with the use of only many tactics as such was definitely not. Our hero realized that the problem with magical creatures and guards will not arise, creatures like demons if now stronger, much higher, so it is necessary countermeasures. Did that mean that a head-on fight just couldn't be called a strategy? So he said that judging by the fact that there were no weapons on the honey, that's exactly what would happen. In turn, the policeman replied that there are no weapons that can compete with magic monsters, many fight only in a convenient to move in uniforms or costumes. Despite this, our hero said, after all, has there not been an armament against monsters before? The policeman said that of course there were, but now such can be found only in the aristocrats. Chihiro could not believe it, that there were no weapons at all. How did it even come to be, after all, before there were plenty? He couldn't even find words, except to say that the mages had become a much lower level. What had happened in these 50 years that he was gone? The policeman closely followed our heroes as someone pondered, but at that moment they had already approached the Tokyo TV tower, where stood an incredible horde of monsters. Our hero realized that the disaster as such has not yet broken, but the number of creatures was just unusual. What was happening? Of course, our hero kept his composure. Unlike the other workers, they realized that the monsters were much more than in the report. There are even demons. They said that they just cannot compete with them and should turn to mages from the civil or magical aristocracy. The policeman was very nervous because the requests have been sent, but of course they are unlikely to get a response because the number of monsters and mages outlaw is increasing throughout the country, so now everyone is swamped with work. Hearing all this information, all the employees started to shout that if only they will fight, it looks more like than something else. However, despite all this panic, the policeman turned only to our hero. He asked him if he could handle it. Even Issei replied that of course he can, but at the same moment he was attacked by the other workers. They said that our hero should shut up and stop making himself cool, because they certainly thought that they cannot overcome these monsters. But at that moment our hero realized that something had changed, so at the same moment came another disaster. The catastrophe begins to gain momentum across the country, not just in their location. The first priority also became the table for everyone to go to save the citizens. It did not ask for operational measures to deal with the disaster. All this information was transmitted by radio. However, the main information that reinforcements from other places were simply not available. Everyone could not understand why the disaster began at this very moment. But only our hero understood that the disaster is a phenomenon of spontaneous occurrence. Now it looked like it was started by a monster. After 50 years, is the catastrophe now being summoned? Everyone was talking about how they couldn't do without support, that no matter how they looked at it, they now needed to review the preparations. But our hero said that the work had already begun, that the monster was already moving towards the city. Everyone saw this and said that they had to stop them or the civilians would suffer even more, so they had nothing left but to just subdue them, that is, kill them. They thought that if they went after them, they would be killed, and our hero was adding fuel to the fire by saying that he could see that the police were in decline. So at this very moment, while our hero was being yelled at, our hero just rushed into battle, right in the middle of all the monsters. They were yelling for our hero to run away. He could have been killed, but our hero started using rank 3 skills, more specifically Wind Cutter. Everyone was shocked by the strength given, and the policeman realized that he had not miscalculated our hero. Demons were looking at him, preparing to charge at him, but our hero's shield was so strong that none so could not reach him. He also realized that he had an audience this time, so it was impossible not to forget about the shield. At this point, our hero continued to shoot monsters, and the policeman stood in complete shock because he could not believe the power that he saw in front of him. How many elements our hero can even use magic? But even so, except for our hero, of course no one, he ordered everyone to go to his aid. Of course all the workers were frightened by the number of monsters, but then they realized that professionals like them cannot keep up with a boy like our hero, so they also went into battle. Our hero watched you work. He realized that those weren't as bad as he thought. However, at that moment the demon came out. They thought that their ranks will definitely not be enough to defeat him because he was not given, unless someone is not a legendary mage, but at the same moment began to speak, or rather to cast a spell that caused already familiar to us snakes. He said that he will deal with the demons, and the rest he prophesies all of them. Everyone immediately turned around and noticed that the demon was defeated, so our hero was actually a cool magician. Even nothing could be said. Everyone said that they should continue to kill them until the boss showed up, and demons and creatures stronger than they can defeat were left just to our hero. At the same moment, our hero recalled that 60 years ago, a disaster broke out around the world, and it was the first. A couple of catastrophes occurred repeatedly. Let the world under the rocks, because if what was 60 years ago will be repeated, the horror will fill the world. But this time our hero was with them. He will not allow to destroy humanity once again. Our hero saw that she of the policeman was now ready to accept his death because was under the attack of one of the demons, but our hero blocked it just like that time. He gave his hand to the policeman and also realized that the situation is the same as then. Did it recognize him? And in turn, the policeman could not understand why he needed the activity of the magician in black, why our hero was so strong. Wouldn't our hero disgust her if she asked him these questions? However, at that moment she realized that she was telling the student, you can't think about something so strange. But at the same moment she was attacked again, so our hero had to save her once again. He told her that she should be careful not to move away from him, which definitely made her blush, which made her embarrassed once again. Our hero realized that most likely that girl just cannot use battle magic. But Karina continued to think that our hero is much more mature since he behaves like this. After a while, all the people began to feel a shiver, their whole body was shaking. But they did not stop, so at this very moment a subspecies of demon appeared. Why did something much stronger than a demon appear at all? Everyone thought that everything was gone. Now they were sure that they wouldn't be able to win even if they had aristocratic mages with them. But calm remained only our hero, who was told that our hero did not interfere because he will not be able to overcome such a monster. But despite all this, our hero is confident that he can overcome. He looked at them all with a look that all stopped trembling. All prayed that our hero could overcome this monster that bigger no problem. And the police were confident that his level, or rather the level of our hero, is more than enough, so our hero can still overcome the subspecies of demon. Minato was already facing the demon, so everyone wanted to see what our hero can do. They wanted to see the real power of our hero. So at this very moment, the policeman, not to stand idly talking about how everyone started to give their best until the boss will not be defeated. Everyone was ready to listen to him, and our hero continued to look at the same demon. They stood opposite each other as if realizing that now for everyone is a fight to the death. Demon began to sew on our hero, but of course missed. All already became the power of this monster, but not our hero. The monster, a little thought, asked, what kind of creature is standing in front of him, who was currently continuing his training. Our hero began to use his circles, but the demon he said that he would kill the strongest man. However, our hero realized that since the demon used the magic of the 6th category, then of course this magic will hurt his allies. How could he even do? However, at the same moment, to everyone's surprise, all the monsters coordinated. They began to charge their attack at our hero, and from everywhere flew projectiles. But the eye of our hero he almost shook. He himself used the ability of the 6th rank, Explosive Flow, which immediately removed all the shots that flew at him. Nothing could not penetrate it. Noticing that the demons was very unsurprised, so that let him know that this was most likely the end. While our hero stood in the same pose as the demon attacked, the policeman could not imagine what our hero was capable of yet. What was it even? Because his strength was exactly beyond the limits. It even seemed that impossible things just happened in front of his eyes, because the 6th rank magic can only be used by people of the level of magical aristocracy. Remote activation is also a top-class technique. Does our hero also belong to the aristocracy? However, at the same moment, the policeman said that there was another thing that surprised him, which was that our hero was probably using another magic at the same time. Because normally, magic can be activated once, then to do it again you have to wait a few seconds. But our hero, as the police video, activated the magic after a moment. Magic is powerful in itself, and the fact that he used it without delay and says that he is superior to the magical aristocrat. The policeman realized that his intuition had not failed him. Our hero was the one he had been looking for all this time, the second Minato Ikigami. Already out of his mind, so he immediately headed for our hero. Same hero realized that there was not much room, so immediately moved air with the help of the 1st rank ability. At the same moment, when the demon, also our hero, moved air, the demon asked him, is our hero's goal is to prevent you from coordinating? However, our hero made it clear that he didn't care at all. Clumsy monster coordination. Here in the air, he can defy it. The demon launched its attack, but our hero returned from each of them, then deflected another ability of the demon, but from the blow went down. Demon thought that our hero just took and smashed into a scone, but at the same moment he noticed that our hero's standing whole. He began to shout to our hero that he is a real moron. But our hero, as soon as he howled the air again, said that the divination of that demon is not so bad if he realized that magic is ineffective if someone chose hand-to-hand combat. However, the attempt was still unsuccessful, so our hero would already want to strike his fist at him, indicating that he could not be hit. The demon could not believe that the human blow at all caused damage to him, so as soon as he wanted to go again at our hero with an attack, he noticed that not so. He shouted at our hero, or rather asked him what he did. Our hero only smiled and said that he can apply, of course, not only magic, now he will definitely show his own technique, which he invented himself. Around our hero began to form country's aura. The demon did not understand what kind of magic, but everyone felt some kind of cold, which was felt from the sky. Our hero continued to gather his strength, so that at one point looked like he was surrounded by magical energy. The demon laughed, because he thought it was all pointless. What was the profit to wrap himself in magic at all, because human strikes against demons are simply ineffective, but ours to test it. as soon as he struck his blow, putting it in the block demon. Then immediately everyone noticed that our hero can defeat the demon in hand-to-hand combat. No one could not believe their eyes, because not that human weapons on the monster in action do not have what to talk about the damage from simple blows. However, the demon still did not understand why the human blows had an effect on him. Our hero decided to say that ordinary weapon strikes against monsters are ineffective, but this is not the case if you have a colossal amount of magical power, because the combination of martial arts magic, the attacker is enveloped in magical power. This is the magic martial technique. The demon could not believe still that some human dared to surpass him. He did not want to let it, so once again tried to pounce on our hero. But this time our hero made a blow, which this time was fatal, so the demon had to call our hero a real monster, because usually so human cannot exactly. As soon as the boss was defeated, then the disaster just took and stopped. All could not believe that the boy was able to manage it. But the policeman still said that no one should not lose vigilance, because it was still necessary to kill the remaining monsters. Our hero, for the situation, realized that everything else he can trust the police, so at that very moment turned off his equipment and realized that he had long since used it in battle, even forgotten how it. As soon as our hero landed on the ground, the same policeman thanked him for his work to subdue the boss of the disaster. They were grateful for the assistance, so they salute our hero. It was on this day that an outbreak of disaster swept through the world, which were reportedly stopped thanks to the active police work of the magical aristocracy, because in the midst of worries about the disaster, reproaches to the government, hope for the magicians and its loss. While the excitement of the people continued to gather momentum, someone said that the mage in black will do it, because that's why they have him. They asked him to save them all, asked the mage in black. However, as soon as our hero came to the school, then again he began to pester him with talk that our hero stopped the disaster, that he is just incredibly cool, and also asked, after all, was the boss was the demon himself. Our hero, who appeared to have bags under his eyes, realized that it is very much bothers him. He is already sick of all these conversations. However, as soon as the bell rang, the teacher said that today's class would be devoted to the recently happened disaster. Although all the students in this class in magic, but someone will definitely be needed, and then he will be called to the battle, so ask everyone to be ready for it. She even said that among them there is already a student who had experience in this while looking at our hero. However, at that moment, while the teacher continued his conversation, the police burst into the classroom and said that it was urgent, that she even had permission from the principal. They wanted to ask our hero for more help. Our hero realized that now they do not create any visibility at all, because what about the face and the police? But as soon as he looked around, who noticed that the other looks that continued to drill his head. Our hero exhaled, but still stood up and asked only to explain the situation, to which the police immediately rejoiced, and also said that our hero will be rewarded for helping them once again. So as soon as they came out, she said that in addition to the disaster, all over the world there are monsters, magic breaking rules, and whole criminal organizations too, so the situation is such that they are completely short of manpower. Our hero realized that's why they came to him. The girl assumed that our hero must be tired of listening to their pathetic and untrue excuses, but the truth was that such a strong man like our hero they just did not know anymore. Such a few were so few that everyone was terrified. Our hero of course found a solution. He suggested that now they can contact him next time with the help of a smartphone, which he had, because it is somehow inconvenient when they just run into his classroom and disrupt the lessons, as well as attracting too much attention to him. At the same moment he gave his phone number to the girl so that they could write to him. But what else did our hero need to do to make the biggest impact? They said that first they would go by car and then they would go to work, because everyone was waiting for them there. But even so our hero said that it was too slow, because they might not make it, so he would go ahead with the help of his spells and skills of walking through the air. He was so fast that the police didn't even have time to keep up with him. There were two brothers who tried to protect each other because something threatened their safety and lives, but we can see that in front of them a huge monster which wants to eat them. They want to run. But at this moment the younger brother falls. He fell out of his hands. They think that the wolf will eat them, but at this moment appears our hero, who protects the boy by simply using his favorite skill, thanks to which the monster was defeated. He stood in front of them and said that the two boys were doing well, and also gave back the toy that he had dropped. Our hero said that now it will not be him to protect them, but those police officers who stood behind him, but our hero will go. The boy who held in his hands the toy just shone with happiness. He liked it so much that he could not forget how our hero now it's time with all the monsters. Our hero in turn realized that fighting on the streets of the city is more difficult than in the academy, because this is definitely not a ruined Shibuya. Here in the obstacle, and people are much more, as well as these people are rushing in panic. So magic projectiles are not involved. Magic power of monsters and people are distinguishable, but people who do not possess it cannot detect it, so if he definitely wants to save everyone, you need to look around incredibly carefully. At this point, all the police said that their priority for today is to tame absolutely all the monsters, because the rescue of citizens can be entrusted to firefighters and self-defense troops. At this point, our hero was noticed, and our hero remembered that this is the same type from that day from the disaster. At this point, the man was glad that Minato came to their aid. It made things easier, because the situation was such that the citizens needed urgent help. And the real situation is that they cannot even have time to get to the east side. So at this very moment, our hero decided that our hero will take care of it all. As soon as our hero was about to leave, the man said that they had received a message that the place where our hero is going to magic outlaw, so he asked our hero to be careful. However, if there is any point in worrying about our hero, because he will kill anyone he wants. No one could not believe how our hero destroyed the monsters in an instant. What kind of miracle is it that our hero appeared at such a time, in such chaos? But while everyone was discussing our hero, Minato continued to use his skills, but realized that the monsters were staying without the disaster was not even 50 years ago, because most likely they just increased their numbers, and moreover, along with his strength. The only thing he realized was that the area exceeds the possibility of taking action only by himself, because if you do not find a solution, the situation will definitely get out of control, and he has several plans, so which one to choose? Everyone thanked our hero for the fact that he helped everyone out, because thanks to him the losses were minimized, but our hero did not want to take all the glory. He said that all thanks to the police and firefighters, because he only helped. Everyone thought he was cool, but decided that now was the time to apologize for treating him inappropriately on disaster day. It was all because of ridiculous pride. Minato in turn said that he realized that students like him could come across as arrogant, so he asked that no one take it personally. All the men began to think that our hero was definitely more mature than they were, and the police girl expressed her gratitude to him because she doesn't even know how to justify the fact that they rely so much on him as a student. At this point, Minato said that there is nothing to it, because he realizes how complicated the whole situation is, and countermeasures against them and disasters are necessary, and the policewoman said that as far as she knows, the fellow policeman is also working on it. But at that moment, while our hero was talking to the policeman, he was approached by the same two boys, who thanked our hero for what he saved, and the younger of them asked him, "After all, is our hero a great saint?" Our hero thought about it, but the older brother of that boy said only that his younger brother liked the great saint, and our hero noticed in his hands himself, so our hero said that he is the great saint. That boy was very happy, and before our hero stood memories, where he was asked for permission to make puppets of him. Our hero thought that no one would need such things, but he was assured that he, the great saint, is a support for everyone, and everyone, especially children, need it. Our hero did not think so, so the man kept insisting that our hero agree. At that very moment, as our hero saw, everything turned out as he said, but he realized another thing, that only dolls made of all kinds of things like leather and wool will not save people. Not even pendants, which were supposed to inspire courage, because the need for the great saint exists in these times. Next before us is a certain place in the city. Many people said that in their neighborhood reigns, or rather often hangs around a magician in black. It was a secret organization of magicians, the Black Rebellion, led by Satoshi Osamu. He was nicknamed Bandit in Black. He was told that an outlaw mage who was not a member of the organization meant that he was opposing the Bandit in Black himself. He immediately ordered his subjects to investigate and bring the mage in black to him, because if he agreed to join them, then let him join them, but if he refused, he would probably have to kill him. It was the head of the branch, Kaga Shuji. But their head said that they could kill our hero only after torture, so Kaga began to lick his lips with impatience. At the same moment, Minato said that that was enough for today, so at the same moment everyone stopped their studies. Minato realized that everyone had become much stronger, but of course it was necessary to study further. At this point, while our hero was thinking about the next task to everyone, it was all discussed that Minato is just a monster, because he is not, that he just did not sweat, and everyone thought that the limits of his strength is exactly unknown. So at the same moment Ruka said that she would like to know the amount of strength of our hero. Yuika also had it on her mind, because if they were talking about Minato, it was possible. But at the same moment Minato said 69,990.000, which shocked everyone. It must be that our hero has too good an opinion of himself. They said that even Ichikami only had 1,000,000. Minato could not believe it, because did Ichikami himself only have 1,000,000? Yuika replied that that's why they say that the human maximum. Didn't our hero know that? Minato couldn't believe it. How could the man who brought magic be said to have only 1,000,000 magic energy? But as soon as he went to the internet to check all the accurate information, then forgot the user manual, it was too complicated. It was time to forget about it. But at the same moment, he received a call from the police and also asked, is it really near our hero his friends? You know, I say, replied that just so the policeman asked to turn everything on speakerphone. Minato did not know how to turn on the speakerphone, so asked Yuika, who was very near. As soon as the speakerphone was turned on, Then the policeman began to talk about the matter, but at that very moment, as soon as Yuika thought about it, our hero immediately refused. Yuika screamed for our hero to explain to her the reason for his choice, so at that very moment, the policeman started saying that first of all, the task was too much for the police alone to handle. That is, given their current state of affairs, they simply can't stand alone against the monsters, so the policeman believed that Minato himself also understands. Our hero understood that of course the root of the problem lies in the fact that not the language of the level of training of magicians, so he asked the policeman about the so-called magical aristocracy. But the policeman said that its main component is just Mizuha, Koichi, Hamurai. All of them have not yet returned from the meeting held abroad, but the only remaining is Fuka, but with them just had other things. Despite all this, after listening to all the information, our hero said that by the way, he had never been able to see Yuika's parents, to which he replied that it was because they were constantly on the road. So the policeman continued that the members of the organization are about a dozen policemen, as well as Mizuha Yuika, as well as her sister, as well as Katsuragi Ryuji, whom the policeman also nominates. Point it is he who will take care of those things that can cause problems, such as clerical work or negotiations. He also said that it would be good if Minato would continue to train the mages and also start commanding, because he would also get a reward and at the expense of this subjects in the academy, as well as help with getting a job. The policeman did not just ask, he begged Minato to become a commander, because he was their only hope. Minato at first exhaled, but only then said that of course he would do it. Everyone was happy, including the entire team of Minato, because they were also in business, and they also had no reason to refuse, because they could all trust our hero. But only our hero had reason to worry. But despite this, he is fit to educate the magicians. At the same moment, the TV was saying that the entire family, which belongs to the magical aristocracy, was criticized by the saint, because in addition to the fact that the family abandoned its duties during the disaster at the academy, it also postpones the acceptance of the world regarding the conquest of monsters. We can notice that all this news is just watching the head of this family. He thinks that everyone who produces this news is just ignorant people, because don't they think that the magical reduction is just omnipotent? However, as soon as he said that, it was probably the butler who came into his room, saying that the business papers from the Central Police Department had just been delivered. It was a notice of the establishment of a special magical squad, which was in the opinion of the head of the family just a pathetic parody of mediocrities. However, despite all this, he realized that just this will make the people, so he asked them to call them their stupid son. In the building where the special magic squad was located, where almost all of its members, there was a joint briefing. Minato that there were only 10 people gathered there, for which the police very apologized, because although they were candidates, and the application was not sent, he was even confident that Minato's will be able to achieve the result, so there will still be applications. Minato was disappointed, because he guessed that there must have been a disagreement because the commander of this squad was appointed just for the hero's air show. But while Minato was thinking about it, the policeman came up to him and gave him a temporary mage badge, because he said that the cooperation was external, but the fact that Minato is an employee of a government agency is certain, so he can show it whenever our hero wants. But it's only for the duration of his stay in the squad, because officially, no one in his squad will be qualified to be a mage. The policeman said that that was it, that was the end of the students, so Minato was in charge of the rest. At that moment, while our hero was tapped on the shoulder, but he found the same feeling, the feeling of being above people, so at that very moment he introduced himself as Kusanagi Minato. This time it was decided so it was him who was the commander of the special magic squad, so he promised everyone that he would make them stronger, even the main families of the magical aristocracy. No one could believe it, because could they really become stronger than the magical aristocracy? But at this moment, Minato replied that apparently they couldn't believe it, so he would prove it. He looked at the policeman and asked him for a magic power meter, so at that very moment he led them there. Minato said that Ruka and Ryuji would be the first to approach them. He asked all of them to measure their magic power. As soon as Ruka and Ryuji got there, the crystals showed a magic power of 30 or even 28,000, even though recently it was 8 or 10,000. Aren't these the indicators of the top class of magicians? But Minato said that it was too early to be surprised, because now it was Yuika's turn. Yuika, as soon as the crystals came out, could not figure out what to do, because what will happen if the power gap between her sister and her will be too great, because she is an ordinary girl. She was scared of the results. However, she had already decided that she will not run away anymore, no matter what results she will get in the end, because she refuses to give up something once again. Well, as soon as she touched the crystal, as soon as she let some magic power into it, then at that very moment she noticed that her power had passed 26,000. Even though according to all the records her magic power was around 2,000, no one could believe that it had grown so fast. Our hero patted her on the shoulder and told her that it is actually possible to increase her magic power almost anything, because all you need is not only talent, but also determination, which will not let you just give up. He stroked her head and talked about how the city had done a great job. He also turned to the others, who at that moment was not crying, and said that you had also done a great job. But the older sister Yuika talked about how that this was to be expected from her sister. After all, if you are from a Mizuha family, then of course you are capable of doing this. She doesn't need to be told that you did a good job. But Minato replied that he would still praise her, because you did a great job. He stroked her head, but everyone was shocked, because our hero is probably crazy. He didn't even realize the fear he was about to experience. Yuika was also scared, because most likely now our hero will get the fact that Minato stroked her older sister's head will definitely make her freak out. However, precautions. Ruka only said that she is no longer a child. Our hero also confirmed that this is true while removing his hand from her head. As soon as our hero finished, and then he immediately went to the others, and he couldn't stroke. However, Ruka realized that this was her first time having someone stroke her head. Even her father had never done that for her. Despite everything, there was a good atmosphere in the air right now. Then some brash man with green hair came into their room. He said that he was looking for everyone everywhere, but they didn't even do the thing to at least greet him properly. However, at the same moment the policeman was talking about how he had just heard that this person should not come. But despite all this, the green-haired man replied that he had just changed his mind, so the policeman introduced him. It was Sho, an aristocratic magician, the eldest son of the Fuka family. As soon as Minato heard all this, he asked the policeman if he understood that the Fuka family had ignored their request from the school as soon as the disaster happened. The policeman replied that they have such a habit. They are just too proud to answer to anyone. Yes, and that's not what a noble family usually does. Talking to Minato, then the very noise started talking about what he heard, that there would be the best magic, the best power concentrated in one place. So why does he see in front of him just a bunch of students? The student who stopped the disaster, just because of his accomplishments, he was appointed to the role of a captain. He couldn't believe it, so he immediately began to examine Minato from all sides, saying that he just couldn't believe that such a person, such an ordinary person like Minato, who is not an aristocrat, was able to stop the disaster. But as soon as Shu finished his inspection, he immediately began to shout at Minato, because how dare he look down on him. He even stepped on the foot of our hero to prove his superiority. Everyone shouted at him to get away from Minato to roll to behave like that. But he said, or what, that ordinary people, just as they are too emotional, react to such things. After all, did not stand in front of him the same sisters from Mizuha. So at that same moment said that not everyone in this room is trash like him. He even started talking about how he had decided that he was going to be the captain of the institution. The policeman said that the captain had already been chosen. He was our hero. But despite all the words of the policeman, just said that they would fight for that role and not get the rights to be captain by fighting. The policeman said that it was already decided, so Shu just walked away. The policeman turned to our hero and told him that he couldn't recover. He was sorry, but despite all that, Minato said that it was okay because he would be useless anyway, because all they needed to do was win. However, as soon as our hero looked at all his teammates, who noticed that they were too aggressive, why did this happen? But by this point, as soon as everyone went outside to the police department grounds, Minato didn't even know where to start, because the police officers had a magic power of about 10.000 units, because he thought that they would have to start by explaining what magic power really is. So at this very moment he started talking about how important magic power is, because it is the magic energy that is used to produce mana itself, but it also has another property. As soon as he said that, he asked a high school student to come out to him. He asked him to hit Minato as hard as he could. Ryuji was already swinging, saying that our hero will not regret this future, but as soon as a punch flew into our general, the punch just took and stopped on the spot. Minato said that this is the power of the magic barrier. You can use this on a permanent basis, and also if you have an amount of mana even more. You can forget about it at all, because this barrier will be activated just like that. This is called an automatic barrier. Simply put, increasing magical capacity is the most important aspect for mages. He asked them to take it into their minds. At that very moment, as soon as he was done with his conversation, he began to teach the guards what he had already taught the high school students while they practiced trying to hit the targets. While our hero was watching this, he realized that in addition to training, they need some equipment, because if it's possible, he wants to get equipment against monsters. But looking at the look of that very policeman, or rather at his reaction, it seems to our hero that it's just impossible to get them right now. So at this very moment, while Minato was sitting at home, he realized that most likely time there is no longer the same blacksmiths who made this equipment, so he assumed that he would have to do it all himself, even though he has never done it. He began to look in his closets, trying to find something interesting. So as soon as he was able to look through all of his closets, he noticed a certain ring. He noticed that it was in good condition, so possibly expensive for our hero, so thought he could stock up on it. Well, as he continued to look at the ring, who noticed that on his phone called himself Hand. Our hero asked why you even called him. On something said that just wanted to let Minato know that he is the only one who can become their captain. Our hero thought that she is a very strange person because she calls him on such an occasion, however, did not miss the opportunity to offer her a little shopping because he just did not know where to buy some accessories. She asked if Yuika and the others would go with them, but Minato of course answered that only they will go because there is no need to go in large groups. That's what he thought. Minato really wanted to know what Ruka thought about it, so he said he didn't mind. Minato thought that Ruka was just his savior, so he asked where they were going to go. As soon as Ruka said that they were going to the maternity ward, our hero said that he would meet tomorrow. He hung up the phone and was very happy because he thought that tomorrow he would be able to buy rings for almost everyone in his group. However, should he go about making anti-monster gear to begin with? As soon as he thought about it, he immediately began to use magic on his ring that he had just found. At the same moment, we see all the situation at Mizuha's house that their dinner so wanted to call her, but realized that Ta did not answer. Is she asleep? She realized that it was not like her, so said that he would go. He first thing that Ta saw that Ta was choosing dresses. Yuika was shocked because it was the first time she'd seen her sister excited in a while. Would she really go out with someone, really go out with Minato? Once enough time has passed, we can spot Minato at Harajuku Station, where of course Yuika is peeping at him. She had to disguise herself because of course Minato could notice her and she can't let that happen, but why is she following them at all? As soon as Minato noticed the hand, it was incredibly beautifully dressed. She asked Minato, did not make the summer wait for him, but our hero replied that of course not, because he just came. All people were surprised by the beauty of the hand, but Yuika thought about the fact that her older sister and also Minato on a date. Why is this even happening? But at the same moment Hand asked what Minato wants to buy or just to look. Minato replied that he wanted rings, not just for a gift, but something similar because he needed several of them. The Hand could not believe it, because does our hero really have so many partners? Minato replied that there are a little more, or a little less, to which Hand replied that Japan is not so polygamous so. Minato was of course embarrassed by this answer, but Ruka did not allow him to justify himself. She said that if our hero wants not very expensive rings, she knows just such a place. All the while, as our hero and Ruka went to all kinds of pawn shops, they were followed by Yuika. Yuika, who was on the street, couldn't understand what they were saying because for some reason they were standing too close to each other. So at that moment, while both of them were choosing rings, an assistant came up to them and said that if they were looking for a gift for a girl, she had a good proposal. Our hero started talking about the fact that Ruka they are his girlfriend, so at that very moment Ruka also said this. She looked so menacing that the assistant just took and ran away in fear. Everyone felt awkward. Yeah, and Minato when they came to one restaurant talked about how he was just exhausted from everything, especially when walking in such wide places, because it's even in them it's hard to find what he's looking for. Does he really just need to change what he's looking for? Well, as soon as Minato looked at his companion, she said that she was making a bad impression, for Minato realizes what she's really like, for she certainly can't act straight like Yuika. She even said that our hero better suggest Yuika to go shopping instead of her, but our hero said that's not true, where Ruku not only peeked at the location of the store they go to, well thought very hard about every single thing they didn't look at, even though they were shopping just for our hero. He told her something that she had done just an incredible job on it. He said it in such a way that even Ruka blushed. All this of course was seen by Yurika, who had never seen her sister make such a face. What was she doing there in the first place? So she should go home. By this point, once evening came, then Minato was happy for he was able to buy so many beautiful rings. Hand couldn't understand why Minato needed them at all, but Minato said that he would give them to everyone. Hand couldn't understand that, so said that everyone would probably be happy to receive them, to which Minato replied that of course they would be happy because it was their piece of special equipment. Hand blushed and said that now she understood what it was all about, so Minato thanked her because she had done a great job today. Hand in turn said that our hero should not pay attention to it because it is the only thing there can do, but our hero, despite everything, said that he will just repay her next time in some way. The Hand talked about not doing that, but it was too late. Minato handed her the ring. He asked her to hold out her hand. The Hand was very much embarrassed, and Minato she was making her rings on her finger while saying that this was the first special ring he had made. He asked her to look after it very carefully. Our hero asked her to wait, but Ta was too fast. He didn't even have time to say that it was an anti-monster ring, but realized that it would be another time to say it. At this moment, we see Ruka, who continues to stare at the ring while blushing incredibly hard. It was probably the next day. Our hero as usual gathered everyone together because today he will give them a new equipment. Everyone. No one could not believe that they now had in their hands the equipment against monsters, so our hero explained that this is a special equipment equipped with wind magic. After all, if you let a little magic into it, you can interact, or rather use the wind magic of the first level. The policeman of course could not understand where Minato even got them, to which Minato replied that made them point. He of course was shocked. After all the blacksmiths who were able to make this equipment almost disappeared, almost extinct. so he told Minato that he certainly never ceases to amaze him. Yuika, as soon as our hero stepped away, was wondering where the ring for the hand, but at the same moment noticed that on the hand of her older sister already had a ring, which she had not worn before. Was it really from their date, and what happened as soon as Yuika left there? At the same moment our hero started to explain that the only thing they were missing until now was fast travel. They can't always rely on machines, it just won't be very fast. Everyone understood that, so at the same moment our hero told them that with this equipment he gave them, with the help of wind magic, they can of course shorten the time to get to where they need to go. However, he asked them to remember that this is just a normal ability, this magic is not meant to attack anyone. Everyone immediately started jumping, or rather trying to. But the best of course was Yuiki. At the same moment, as soon as Minato said this, then she began to rejoice, praising himself with all sorts of words, but as soon as she noticed the look of Minato on himself, he thought that Minato found out that she was watching them, spying. As soon as she turned away, our hero asked her if she knew Ichikami Minato from 50 years ago. As soon as our hero asked her that question, she said that he was the person she admired the most. Our hero decided to ask how strong he was. At that moment, Yuika replied that Ichikami Minato's magic power was about 1,000,000, and he could use an incredible number of spells. He died in a battle with the demon god during the same disaster. But after the death of that very hero, Tak made sure that a lot of good mages didn't disappear, such as her family. However, just after the death of the same hero, almost no documents, their same records were not left, so that is why they began to build magical academies from scratch. Our hero could not believe it, because he realized that the number of death of the magician was quite high, but remained most likely books, because he stored them in various places, as if preparing himself for the future. However, looking at the whole situation now, he realized that the knowledge of those mages who were at that time were too erroneous, and the magical power of the mages was too low. Was it really just one person who did this? Just as Minato was pondering, he was approached by Yuika, who said that if something happened to Minato, he should tell her, because she could be relied on. Minato turned away at the same moment, saying that everything was fine, but everything that Yuika did made him feel better because she was doing a great job. Minato of course wanted to tell her that he was a black magician or something like that, but of course the possibility of her getting involved in this seemed too high, so he better not do it, because in the meantime, if she learns too much, or rather learns about his past, then of course she will think that everything is not true. But Yuika at this time thought about the fact that Minato just doesn't want to tell her anything, because she is unreliable. But if she stays stronger, then of course he will do it, so she decided that and try much harder. After 1 week, Minato continued all the training. He made everyone use the magic of the 2nd level, then the 3rd, some even reached the 4th level. He realized that thanks to his training of course everyone is becoming much stronger, but the policewoman was even able to use attack magic, despite the fact that she could not even use her 1st level. However, he was more and more intrigued by the two sisters Mizuha. Everyone was very happy that they were doing well, so Minato praised. However, he asked them not to rejoice early because their level had increased. Because despite everything, their level doesn't necessarily reflect their magic power, so at that very moment he asked Ruku to use a level 4 ability on him. Once she started using that ability, Minato was able to repel it thanks to the level 1 ability. No one could believe it, so Minato explained that their level was simply increasing the limit of magic energy that they had. After all, once they understand the whole point of magical abilities, that's when they will become much stronger. And also asked them not to forget about their comrades. After all, if they start combining their powers, they will become stronger together. Everyone was in a good mood until Shu came in and started laughing at everyone again. The policeman couldn't understand why this one had come in the first place, so he replied that since disaster doesn't come, he was terribly tired, he was incredibly bored. He replied that he would let the police deal with the monsters while he was resting. Well, and in general he dressed that the catastrophe would come as soon as possible. At this very moment it came, the sky began to turn red. Shu was just out of his mind with joy. After all, this is what he had been waiting for so long. And also said that now he would become the new captain of their department. After all, he would defeat the boss first, and only then would become the new captain. Everyone began to talk about not losing to someone like him. They were ready to fight. However, it was at this moment that the green-haired man went airborne, saying that the losers would be left behind. Everyone was angry at this behavior, but Minato reminded them that they too have things that work like this. He had everyone put on not only rings but also headsets so they could communicate. Yes, and this was their first battle once they organized their new lineup. By this point, as soon as Shu was ready to win, because he thought everyone was slow, he was tailed by our heroes, led by our Minate, who realized that most likely their opponents were strong in wind magic, so it would be difficult for. He could certainly leave them behind, but it parasite the integrity of their team, so realized that they should not rush into battle. Shu, who flew ahead of course laughed at everyone, Because his enemies could not keep up with him, he called Hooters, which pissed off absolutely every member of our hero's team. By this time, Shu had already flown into place. He was ready to fight the monsters, so at the same moment shaped them. He continued to attack all the magic, not noticing the people who were nearby. All were scared, so at one point he almost hit the people. Minato of course managed to protect them, but was very angry because he could not understand what Shu was doing. Minato was so formidable that Shu and his company just could not move from the place. They were so scared that they could not do anything. But Minato's unit was already in place. He continued to save people and also asked Shu's unit not to interfere in this people. As soon as Yuika flew up, the green-haired man could already move, so Shu felt too free again. He began to say that it was the fault of the squad. So he said that he would go in over the jelly no boss himself, and those let them focus on ordinary citizens who are not worth anything. Minato realized that it would not cost him anything to just take out Shu, but it would look like Minato didn't want to fight, as if he was running away from the battle. But at the same moment I thought it would be a great opportunity. The policeman couldn't understand, couldn't Minato handle them by himself? Our hero replied that he was the commander, so he would decide what to do, to which the policeman said he hadn't thought of that. At the same moment, Yuika started yelling that they couldn't always rely on Minato, so she said they should handle the monsters themselves. Everyone was encouraged by this, so at that very moment our hero ordered that they should win this battle. Everyone started to use their new abilities that they had acquired during the training. Yuika in turn realized that she used to be scared because she couldn't get anywhere with it, but now she can defeat monsters on her own. She definitely became much stronger than she was before. But our hero, who was above the battlefield, realized that around him was an incredible amount of magical energy. However, despite all this was not only people, but also monsters. Yes, and it seems so that many people just could not get out. To save them will definitely not be an easy task, but not for him. At the same moment we realized that not only the squad of wooden hair, but also the squad of Minato, they even noticed that the demon is approaching them. Shu of course noticed it, so at the same moment he headed towards it. He was stopped, because it was a demon, but Shu was of course sure that he could because there are hardly any people who can fight demons. That's exactly what he was, so he was sure that he could handle it. He started to activate his 4th level ability, but the demon was not easy, so as soon as the abilities collided, then Shu at the same moment realized that he was too reckless. He immediately started to run away, so the charge flew into the people. But even though they just ran away, Minato was right there to protect the people. He even noticed that he was helped by his squad, which was not so bad. Meanwhile, Shu was happy that he was able to escape. Yuika of course went up to him and asked him why he was involving people in all this. Shu said that they were the ones who couldn't escape, but even so, he got a slap from Yuika, who yelled that he wasn't worthy of being a magical aristocrat. Shu couldn't believe that he was slapped like that, but even so, she told them to leave him behind because they had to deal with the remaining demons. Shu couldn't believe that he was being ignored, but they had already left. But Minato was saying that they were doing a good job because they had gotten there much faster than the hero could have expected. But there were still a lot of people to save, and the hero had to focus on the boss who was about to show up. Shu and his company were holed up in one of the ruined apartments at this moment. They were discussing that they could defeat the demons, but for someone like Shu, they just couldn't give up. He suggested to just fly in when the monsters were wounded. All of his services confirmed that it was just an incredible idea that they decided to execute it at that very moment. While Shu's squad was trying to think of something instead of acting, Minato's squad faced the demon. They thought that they had to defeat him, so at that very moment they unleashed their squall and so on him. But he remained unharmed, so they realized that he needed to use 4th level magic. They were able to dodge another demon attack that was much more powerful than past's. That was twice as powerful as their own because their difference in strength was too impressive. They just couldn't figure out what they should do at all, and Minato realized that they probably weren't having a good time, so he advised them to just work together. Yuika shouted that they were already doing it. But at that moment our hero replied that it wasn't true because they needed to combine their strengths by trusting each other because the key to the solution lies right in Yuika and also in Ruka. Of course Yuika didn't understand anything, so he asked our hero to explain. But Minato wasn't going to explain anything either. He said that they had to figure it out for themselves. So despite all the fuss, Ruka ordered them to start thinking together because that's the only way they can figure it out, and Yuika understood that if her sister said so, but that's exactly what they should do. So she told them to take out the small targets first, because strong demons take too long to cast their abilities, and also ordered them to attack the police from the other sides. As soon as they took a few seconds until the demon had not yet launched its attack, they began to dodge them, and Minato realized that it was Yuika who had taken command. But I think that a high school student or Ruka will act, but of course not her. However, at that moment Yuika was just raising all the difficult problems. Can they even win? His only solution was that she had to remember what our hero had told her. She must have been missing something. She wasn't sure of the method she went to use. She had to try. After all, it was an all-or-nothing situation, so at that very moment she spoke to them and asked everyone to give her strength. Shu also saw all this and couldn't understand what they were doing together. However, those were already sure that they would succeed, or rather they wanted to believe it. They realized that on that level 5 ability that activates the demon, they just have to clench their teeth and start acting. However, once the ability hit everyone, Shu thought that they were done, but they came out alive. All of them, they used their abilities to the maximum. They used the shield. But our hero realized that this is just a simple situation. After all, if it is difficult to avoid that ability directly, then you just need to take some of the damage. While at this time Yuika as well as the hand continued casting ability. After all, they all realized that if you use it, they will be able to use the ability to avoid the demon. It was our hero that drained all the power out of them. They understood. The whole squad of Minato realized that they had succeeded, because the sky was no longer red, but Ruka and Yuika just fell to the floor, because they were very tired. But they did it together, they won. As soon as everything came to an end, Minato said that they were able to the rest of the disaster. It was their first amazing mission. He told you that everyone showed what they are worth. And Minato can already say that they are certainly getting stronger. Point in particular, he singled out Yuika, who showed the real power of leadership, and everything she showed in general was beautiful. Yuika pretended that of course she understood how great it was, but could not understand what great magic he was talking about. Minato could not understand, because did not know anything about what she was able to activate, but she continued to say that it was all thanks to the advice that Minato gave her. At the same moment, Minato thought that Yuika was actually much more unusual than he had imagined. So as soon as our hero calmed down, he said that everyone had done incredibly well, and Yuika and her sister were very happy that they had done well. Our hero realized that now was the time to turn on the TV, so turn on the TV they saw their police officer, as well as other ministers who were sitting and discussing the creation of a special magical squad. At this point they were asked by the press, after all, as the leader of this team is the same student who stopped the disaster at the academy, is it really true? To answer this question volunteered of course the police officer, so said that the leader of the squad is the same student. This is the man they need, because he possesses the ability to make the team. However, as soon as our hero appeared, he immediately saved them. So the policeman himself says that it is Minato should become a new era. There is no one else to whom they could entrust this role. Minato was born, that there would be no problem. But at that moment the press exploded, saying that this role was too important, saying that what the policeman said was probably true. Of course the head of the police was sweating a lot, because he was scared to imagine what could happen. But at the same moment the aristocrat himself came in, Shu, who said that the current leader of their squad was incompetent, because the new leader of the squad should be Shu. As soon as he said that, the policeman started to talk about why he was there in the first place, because he had lost their fight. As soon as the policeman said that, the noise started to pick up that he didn't understand anything, that there was no promise, because commoners like policemen should listen to him and keep quiet. At the same moment the press started asking questions to Shu himself, because many people got information that Shu did not want to help the villagers, instead they just put them in a fight. Is it true? Shu said it wasn't true, but at the same moment the press started telling them that they had this information, they had pictures and videos. Nobody could believe it, but of course they started to condemn Shu. He in turn told everyone to shut up, because it was the fault of the citizens who intervened in the aristocracy, so everyone who was there with him should have just kept quiet. The policeman realized that this was a chance, so he said that everyone should listen to the policeman now. They should realize that the whole magical aristocracy is just mired in corruption. They need heroes like Minato, who can protect the people, who can fight demons. They just don't need aristocracy who don't protect the citizens. Shu realized that now was the time to run, but told the policeman that he would pay for it. And Minato, who had been watching the whole time, realized that the policeman had found the time to do it, but Yuika was talking about the fact that the videos of the magical aristocrats, how they were exposing the citizens, and our hero was very frightened by the internet, which spread information incredibly fast. But it was at this point that he noticed that Yuiki had a strange look on her face. She said that their faces were also caught on camera. Our hero realized that hiding his identity was no longer possible, so after a week there were already too many people. The policeman said that for some reason it was now much easier to get support. Yes, and the number of volunteers instantly increased. Most likely it was just with the help of this conference, as well as information on the network. The policeman apologized for saying too much at the conference. He did not want to ethics. He also realized that most likely the screams of fire in a little man, or rather a student, would be much better than a man. It was just encouraging. By this time our hero was already in Shinjuku, in the form of a black magician, where many people continued to film the troop of monsters, saying that most likely it was a black magician. Yes, and Minato realized that most likely the person caused a furor, because now absolutely everyone is trying to film him. Yes, and the patrol has increased. Perhaps they don't even need the black magician anymore. But he noticed something strange. He noticed the bandits trying to get money out of someone, saying that he didn't pay them back. The man tried to say that he had already given them all the money, but of course nobody believed him, so they wanted to kill him with spells. Minato of course tried to help him by blocking the account, but as we can understand, of course the bandits cannot resist Minato, so they are already beaten up. I apologize to him. That very strange is going on here, because for some reason the police do not want to deal, but the bandits that in front of them, the magician in black, they even remembered the words. What is looking for underground syndicate point? However, as soon as they said this, then our hero began to eavesdrop on them. He asked about this organization, so afraid they began to say that there is such an underground organization, but asked them to let them go. Our hero asked to tell more, because only then he will let them go, so they answered that it is such an organization of magicians, which is kept out of sight, even most likely they are involved in all criminal things, they receive an incredible amount of money, something. They even said that these have connections not only in the media resources, but also in politics, so they do everything that there is a point to get. So after these words, they also got hit on the head by our hero. As soon as he dealt with them, he remembered the words of the police girl who mentioned something just about illegal activity. It's about this clan that he's interested in all this, because most likely it could be that everything is connected with the appearance of monsters, and also everything that the street is filled just because of this organization, so he realized that it's time to deal with everything on his own. At the same moment he found himself in that incredibly lively neighborhood, where he realized that modern ways of entertainment have become too lively, so lively that it's all the same. We see that next to this cafe passed a certain woman with purple hair. She also walked to the bar where she asked for some information from the bartender, of course for a decent amount of money. So asked back what she really wanted to know. The girl immediately said that she would like to know about the group, but the bartender replied that this is not the question that she should ask, because she is not in the right position to say such a thing. After all who were in the institution just from there, they all heard that someone is trying to sniff out the business, but no one expected such a beautiful girl. The girl realized that she had done something wrong and was being fed false information. At the same moment she began to be shot at, she realized that she had to get away from there. But at one point she was shot. Everyone came up to her, saying that she looked great, that no one would refuse to have such a woman at home. The woman thought that all was lost, that she had let someone down, but of course by this time Minato came in, who asked about the same organization. He went straight to the bartender. At the same moment the same bandit started to come up to him, saying that he probably didn't understand the situation he was in, rather than advising him to go home and stay under his mother's skirt. But at the same moment that very brazen dude just took and flew into the wall, everyone was scared, but the girl realized that our hero was definitely an unusual person, because it was impossible to send someone away so easily. Was it really magic? The nominee said that most likely his informant was not lying. It's most likely there were only, yes, and most likely it is wrong to attack just a woman. They wanted to kill him, they didn't want to lose to some kid, but even so, Minato started to dodge. The girl was shocked, because she thought that no matter how strong Minato was, he couldn't resist the high level of ability. So the girl shouted at him to run, but despite that Minato immediately dodged all the attacks and dealt with all the bandits thanks to his speed and skill. The girl was shocked, because he was moving too fast for her. Did he really use magic? But at this point there was only one person left in the room, who was so scared that he could not help but utter a word. He asked Minato, "Who is he?" Well, Minato replied that he is a black magician, a man who will kill their organization. By this point, as the last bandit fell from fear, Minato approached the girl, who noticed that he looks at school age while having just a charming look. Minato, of course, asked her to get up and then went to the bartender, who he asked for information. The bartender was frightened. He said that then he would be killed. Well, as soon as Minato broke the table thanks to one blow, he made him understand that this was his last chance. It is either he talks about the organization, or will also be dead. Point bartender understood everything. He said he would talk. He asked our hero not to cut him in half, just like the table, so that further moment told that their base, the base of the organization, is located in Tokyo, in several places. He said that the leader of that group is just incredibly influential underground world, although it is the same rumor that he manipulates Japan with the help of his connections. Our hero wanted to ask about those places, or rather where they are located. The bartender responded that he does not know, because such as them, low-level people, they just do not say such. Our hero realized that something most likely does not know anything, so let him go, so decided that he will return to the square back, because he will be able to catch more illegal magicians there. As soon as Minato was about to leave, the girl thanked him for saving her, because she couldn't even imagine that this would happen to her. That there was no need to worry, because something happened that no one could imagine, even though it was her own fault for setting herself up. The girl replied that it was a bit rude of him. But they are Minato looking for the same group. Does he want to find her alone, and what will he do to her? She realized that Minato was serious, that he couldn't do it alone, so she thought she could help. Minato wondered if it was with her at first, the one who almost died in front of him. But despite everything, the girl replied that she was a detective. She had a lot more information than Minato and connections, but she didn't have one thing, Minato's power. She thought that the black magician was much more powerful than the rumors said, because if she could work with him, she could achieve her goals. Minato realized what the clown was getting at. She was offering him information in exchange for his power, and everyone thought it sounded like a great partnership. So the girl was already holding out her hand to Minato. Let's see what she's willing to do. Of course, at this point, our character wakes up Nuna was a foreign woman, but can he even trust this woman? After all, if Voob's everything goes on like this at all, then she can definitely ruin something. However, there was no other choice, it was only necessary to also agree. At this point, they both shook hands, and the girl introduced herself as Leona, but our character introduced himself as the Black Magician. Of course, Leona said it was quite a long pronunciation. Isn't there a shorter name? But our hero only said that there was nothing, and that he could be called anything she wanted. Leona immediately said that Chrono would be a normal name. Our protagonist agreed to this, but still asked why the bandits attacked her at all. Leona immediately took up her stance and said that she also wanted to track down the location of the inhabitants of all the other boats in this group. Our character immediately said that it was just frivolous to do this, but Leona already knew about it. She definitely didn't want to hear all this from our protagonist. But she also understood that she had no other choice, because no one wants to go against this group personally. Of course, the police and all the other mages were almost bribed, so that's the reason why no one wants to do anything. Our main character understood that he was remembering something like this. Someone had already told him this type of information. However, when he looked at Leona, he noticed that she was trembling all over, which means that she simply can't get out of this whole situation. Leona died, and then said that her little brother was attacked by these magicians, even though their parents were long gone, so she decided to take care of her brother on her own. She worked tirelessly to provide for him, so he probably felt very lonely until one day when burglars entered their house. However, was her brother actually attacked and injured? Leona immediately said that he wasn't really hurt, but he was still hurt in some way. This all made it clear to our character that he is probably in a coma, so even magic cannot help him in this. Leona, while she was still talking about it, lost her temper because she knew that the doctors were telling her that he might or might not wake up, even though the boy was only 9 years old. She also said that the same people were just from that group. Our main character asked if she wanted revenge, but Leona only replied that she wanted justice because she didn't have the power, but only a black magician could fight against them all. Of course, our character knew that she wasn't lying, because most likely she wouldn't have shared this story with strangers, but it is our protagonist who loves such people. He said that if she proved that she was useful, he would be happy to help her. Of course, he said that he could not say, because most likely there will be too many people there, and it is clear that this group is something like the Yakuza or the Mafia. But at the same time, our protagonist only asked Leona for one favor. He asked her to tell everything that she knows about them. He asked to know their locations, because he was going to break into them. Leona immediately started shouting that it was all very reckless to attack the enemies in this way, but our hero only said that he would definitely not die, because he is a black magician. Leona, of course, said that she would go with him, but about her brother, she said that even if she died, he could get the money for insurance. Of course, our main character recalled what he himself had experienced and said that in reality money is useless, unlike family, so you can never say that it can just die. Leona immediately started shouting and saying that strong people like the black magician would never understand weak people like her, would never be able to understand how such people lived. After all, it is Leona and she who simply do not deserve such a fate. Leona began to cry and lowered her head, but the black magician only said that he did not understand what she was doing and once again asked her to send him the coordinates, because now they are going to defeat all those who are hiding. Immediately, Leona and our protagonist left the building. Leona said that the road would not take very long, but at the same moment our hero came up to her, took her by the waist and said that they would take a little walk. At this point, we see the office of the Yakuza. They can't believe their eyes because they saw something in the window. At the same time, the window was broken because our heroes broke in. Of course, our protagonist could not think what exactly is this group hiding here, but Leona was definitely not happy with this situation. All the guys at the table immediately started pulling out their weapons and pointing them at our characters, asking them who they were. But the black magician only said that the Yakuza had not changed at all. But when asked who he was, he only replied that he was a black magician. The Yakuza immediately started shouting, saying that most likely his guests had gone mad, so he immediately ordered them to be killed. At this point, our main character asked Leona to stand behind him and not leave. She agreed, so as soon as the bald man started his attack with a katana, he was horrified because his katana just broke on our main character. Immediately there was an order that we should shoot them, but of course the bullets did not work because a shield was built around our protagonists. They were all scared, but our black magician asked if they had a boss around because he would like to ask him about his involvement in the Black Rebellion. The Yakuza immediately became even angrier and started shouting that if he thought he could get away from him, he would die. At the same time, everyone took out their guns, but the bullets again failed to penetrate this shield. Our protagonist was just thinking that it was all a hassle, because they couldn't even do anything about it, so he decided that it was time to just finish it. While all the Yakuza were still shouting, our character was right next to them and sent them all into the wall with a single blow. Leona didn't notice all this, but our protagonist was already rushing her because they were done. All Leona was thinking at that moment was that our main character is extremely strong. He was so strong that he could even defeat the entire group. But for now, she was thinking again. Then our protagonist just picked it up again and said they were going to fall again. Leona hadn't expected this, but it had all happened so quickly that there was nothing she could do about it. That's how they ended up on the other floor. Time after time, they made it all the way to the bottom, where our protagonist wondered why they were constantly being attacked. But Leona just kept silent, and then, catching her breath, said that you shouldn't just break into the windows and then complain. After all, this is how they just take and strain everyone who is in the building. Our character said that now he understood everything. But even if they should not do it, they are all bad. As soon as Leona continued to think that our protagonist did not understand anything, the black magician himself said that now they will actually start acting seriously. They came to a man, telling him that they would like to know something about the same group. However, the person just took and closed the door behind our heroes. Of course, Leona thought that all was lost, but at the same moment our protagonist just broke down the door, behind which were all the members of the mafia. At this point, our character said only what he once again wanted to ask about the same grouping. Everyone immediately started throwing themselves at our character, saying that it was worth killing him, but the black magician only said that it was not appropriate for well-bred people to attack when they were being spoken to. It was at this point that the mobster received a blow to the head. He had flown so far that someone in charge had finally arrived. He asked what had brought our Grivo to them. Of course, the black magician immediately said that the only reason he came was because he wanted to know everything about the Black Rebellion. Many people were not happy with this kind of talk, so they wanted to attack our protagonists from behind, but their boss immediately told them to stop. They wanted to threaten him, but the boss immediately began to reveal his cards, saying that his group is an honor group, so they have no connection with such dirty people. Our black mage asked the boss if he knew where the Black Rebellion's habitat was, but the boss also answered with a question. After all, will our hero leave if the boss says so? This was the reason why the black magician had given his word. But how come they were now sitting at the same table as the mafia boss? Immediately, the boss confessed that his name was Oshiro, so our heroes also had to introduce themselves. At the same time, Oshiro took out a map and said that the journey to the Black Rebellion would be short, but everything that is drawn on this map is enough for you to find out for yourself. Leona immediately took a picture of the map, and our character realized that it was much more reliable than it probably seems. However, does Oshiro really want to help them? Aren't they in the same industry as Dark Rebellion? But at the same time, the head of the mafia said that they are not friends, they are from different spheres and directions. Of course, Oshiro thought that it was impossible to call that group a group, because even though they have their own principles, they are still trash among people. So at the same time, our black magician said that they just came to ask about it, so they're leaving now. However, as soon as they arrived at the window, the mafia boss asked if they wanted to go directly to the same group, such strong opponents. But our main character just took Leona in his arms and said that they had already met them. He knows what they are capable of, so he is ready to do everything himself right now. Of course, he flew out the window, and the mafia boss said that now there will be a person who will change their arrangement in the city. By that time, we can see two groups that stand opposite each other. Most likely they exchange weapons for money. Both groups were very pleased with themselves, because they did not think that there is so much crime in Japan that it is so easy to exchange weapons for money. Both people were laughing until our main character flew in through the window again. Immediately, everyone pointed weapons at our protagonist, and our black magician only said that now he found the very group that he had been looking for so long. He couldn't even believe that all the people in front of him could use magic at all, and the other half could use weapons. Of course, Leona started filming everything, but the people who were standing in front of her began to threaten and ask what they needed and who they were in general. Of course, our black magician again said that he had to listen to so many questions of the same type every day, and then said that he was a black magician, he just came to destroy the Black Rebellion. Everyone couldn't understand anything at first. They didn't believe a single word of it. They couldn't believe that such a little thing would want to solve everything on its own. But it was at this moment that our hero simply took and let go of the fire magic that swept past his ears. This all threw them all out of their rut, and then immediately started using magic towards our protagonist. Of course, they didn't succeed, because our black magician was again much stronger than them. No one could break through his shield. Immediately, the entire squad started cursing among each other, saying that they were all useless. But our character only thought that they were definitely not magicians, their strength was incomparable to what he had. Many began to say that they still had something that they could still use. It was at this moment that one of the crates was opened. There were a lot of grenades that they wanted to use. Our main character immediately asked Leona to run away. But the grenade was already thrown, and gas immediately began to flow out of it. Two people immediately thought that they had succeeded. They started to go to the place of the grenade explosion, but to their surprise they found only a standing body that just looked at them. Our protagonist, in turn, said that gas is gas, so you can just control it like air. He said that a great magician can't be made poor by using it. All the people immediately started calling for help, but no one answered the phone. Of course, our main character immediately said that no one was answering them because he was able to deal with them much earlier than they could have imagined. So the only ones left are them. He only asked them to prepare for the fact that now each of them will be punished. Just in a second, everyone was defeated. Sure enough, as soon as he was done with everything, he clapped his hands and told Leona to come back, coming out of hiding. But as soon as he looked in her direction, he noticed that she had been captured by a certain person who made it clear that he should be careful with him. At this point, too many thought processes were going through our protagonist's head. He knew that the distance between him and the opponent was too great, so even if he tried to do something, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Of course, he wanted to use magic to knock the dagger out of this person, but he made it clear again that he shouldn't be so harsh, because most likely the black magician doesn't want the girl to die. Of course, our character understood that the guy in front of him could see the magic of our black magician, and most likely he could also use magi. The level and its strength is approximately 40,000. Of course, most likely we have a fairly strong magician in front of us. Leona, in turn, continued to apologize, saying that she didn't want this to happen, but the black magician only said that there was nothing wrong with it because he would definitely save her. At the same time, the guy behind him was just lying. He couldn't believe that someone would even dare to ignore his requests, as well as his presence. He said he was the god of the place, so such a reckless main protagonist will definitely make the girl die. Of course, the black magician just said that he wouldn't do anything because he understood everything. The guy calmed down, so he apologized and apologized for his performance. He said his name was Kaga Shuji, the head of the Black Rebellion. However, to be exact, it was actually sent by his boss to bring the black magician to him. Of course, Kaga admitted that he had already studied a lot of people to find out more about the black magician, but now he finally found all the information. He said that he simply couldn't believe that he and a certain woman could destroy all the branch that limited them. While Kaga was talking about everything, he accidentally cut her throat. Of course, Kaga apologized for all of this at this point because he had succumbed to his emotions, but still, it was just like him. All he said was that this girl's blood was probably incredibly delicious if it looked like this, so he definitely wanted to check it out. Of course, as soon as Kaga noticed the black magician, he said that he had completely forgotten about him because now he would start torturing him and then just take and kill him. Of course, he wouldn't even let him escape. After all, now before their fight, there was only one thing that hindered them, it was a woman. Of course, our protagonist immediately confessed that instead of sacrificing the girl, he chooses to torture himself. Our protagonist only thought that no ability would work on him, but Kaga only asked to disable the shield that the black magician had around him. Leona thought that something terrible was going to happen, and our main character knew about it. He was even a little surprised, because Kaga probably watched the battle. Roz knows about the barrier, so it was probably very rash to show everything in battle. As soon as the shield was removed, our protagonist asked if Kaga was happy now. However, as soon as he removed the shield, then at the same time a lot of lightning followed right into the body of our main character. Our character was just screaming in pain, so Leona was really scared. She thought it was all her fault. Of course, Kaga was very pleased with himself. He continued to mock the body over and over again. Leona was trying to get out by then, but it didn't work out, so Kaga just threw her out on the floor. He said that she should just lie there and watch her friend die. But before that, he definitely had to taste her blood. Just when Kaga was sure that the girl was going to die, our protagonist showed up and said that the bastard's face was going to get hurt. So it was at this point that Kaga passed out. Leona came up to our main character and asked him why he was fine. It was at this point that the black magician had to be told that he could make small points of barriers that would help him defend. Leona was very happy about this, but our protagonist immediately approached her and said that now there is no need to worry, he will heal her wound. Of course, Leona was glad that her wounds were gone, but the only person who wasn't happy was Kaga, who couldn't believe that he was hit so easily. How did they even dare to do it after he tortured them? It was at this moment that Kaga was filled with mana power, and Leona was terrified as an agrarian flame wall appeared in front of her. Kaga used the flash, which was supplemented with lightning, which scared Leona very much. She screamed in fear, so our hero just had to use a shield on her. He said that even though it was the first level of the shield, they would still be able to defend. Leona, in turn, was very surprised. She could not believe that this was even possible. Is it even possible that a black magician who looks so young is capable of such a thing? Who is he anyway? But of course Kaga was blinded by his rage at the time. He just couldn't believe that anyone would survive his spells. He thought they were just screaming in agony right now. Leona also thought that now the magic should evaporate, as if it had never existed, but our protagonist told her that this magic is persistent. It consisted in the fact that it allowed the owner to use several types of magic at once. This principle also allows you to constantly cancel magic and use it again, just like the very principle that allows you to move through the air, as if levitating. Leona of course said that our hero explained to her, just like a schoolgirl. She yelled at him a lot, but all she thought was that they were running out of time. Of course, the black magician said that since she thought so, he would show her what he was really capable of. He immediately extended his hand forward, which made it clear to Kag that our main protagonist probably knows how to use this kind of magic as well. Leona also pointed her finger at Kaga, saying that he must be very angry right now. As it turned out, there was only anger and madness in his eyes. His eyes started to burn so much that even our black magician said that the person in front of them is strong. After another attack, the inside of the shield was even hotter than it had been before, so the hag laughed, because he showed everyone what happens when you don't count on your own strength. He said they'd run out of oxygen sooner or later, so they'd just die inside. He asked our main character to just go beg for mercy, but the black magician only pretended that everything was fine with him, so that was exactly what annoyed the crone even more. He started to say that most likely our main character did something that is now so arrogant, but still the hag was sure that now the girl will suffer in a drop from death. But Leona only realized that Cho was already feeling almost nothing, as if he wasn't in this situation at all. Hag cried out in surprise, because how is this even possible? But our protagonist only said that he was very happy for his opponent, that he could influence the world around him, but most likely he did not know much about magic. Hag started casting a spell, and our protagonist only said that he didn't know that the magic barrier is a mixture of magic itself and the environment. So if magic is in the air at all, then it belongs to it. So in other words, magic is both a shield and air. Our main character waved his hand, after which the fire was gone. He was definitely sure that the hag had learned his lesson about all this. However, the hag only fell to the ground, shouting that he could not believe this outcome, because he was sure that his torture was the best thing that could be thought of, that no one had ever been able to get out of his grip before. But by that time, our character was already standing right above him, casting a spell and preparing the hag for death. It was at this moment that the hag screamed very hard, but he couldn't figure out where he was at all. Why couldn't he scream and hear something? Why was he in this place at all? The black magician, in turn, said that this would be his punishment for the past sins that he committed without paying attention to any of the people around him. Leona, in turn, warned them that their place had probably been found, so they should leave. Our protagonist was already ready, so at the same time he picked up Leona in his arms and again ascended to the nearest building. As soon as both of our heroes were able to get to a safe place, we could see that now more and more police cars were approaching the building where they were a few minutes ago. However, while the black magician was looking at the whole situation, Leona stood behind him and asked if he was even willing to take a helpless girl like her into his team. Of course, she knew that she would drag him down, but still, she has connections and information. Of course, our black magician gave himself away. He said that he just realized that he couldn't resist people's requests, so now he will hope that they can work together with Leona. Leona immediately started pointing at herself, saying that she would do everything in her power to gather as many people as possible. A day later, we can see that a lot of news was just exploding from the fact that the black uprising was blocked and caught, that all her canoes were put under arrest. But at the same time, other people started shouting that they had received a letter from a certain organization, which states that it is the black magician who will deal with all illegal groups. He said he didn't care who he was going to fight against or when. One of the people reacted very strongly to this information. He clearly did not like our character, because it was not for nothing that he turned to his man and told them to gather people. At that moment, the same guy who was standing behind said that he would do everything in the best possible way. It was the head of Fuka Jin. Of course, he also watched all the news that was shown on the TV. He watched as many people claimed that what they really needed was an organization that would protect them. After all, the special forces of magicians are needed, since the authoritative families do not want to support them. Sure enough, the genie immediately threw the cup that the butler had brought him aside and asked for Shu to be brought to him. After all, now he definitely wants to show everyone what it means to go over to the noble family. By that time, New York was in chaos and many people were fleeing in fear of them. Of course, the police came and tried to deal with the monsters, but the invasion was too intense. They realized that they could no longer cope with such monsters that were coming at them. But just as they were getting desperate, a monster that was stronger than everyone else appeared. The police couldn't figure out how to deal with it until the monster activated its level 5 abilities. But just as they were about to give up, some magician who also used water element level 5 magic appeared and contacted them. He said that his name was Mizuha. He came from Japan to help everyone. The monster tried to defend against this attack, but apparently the water element was too strong. So as soon as the monster was defeated with a few magic circles, all the magic police started thanking Mizuha. This man became so well known in those circles that he was constantly filmed by cameramen, and important bigwigs gathered to escort him back to the plane. Many people even regretted that such a useful person was leaving so early, and some said that even in relation to the noble mages, he was quite weak. Of course, Mizuha confessed that he was leaving because he has things to do in Japan itself, so the way he lives now cannot continue because his daughters are now in a special unit. Once again, we see our Kusanaga's friends discussing his power. They couldn't even deny the fact that he was probably the strongest magician in all of Japan. However, the magic police in Japan also came along, saying that they could even do this together. Everyone immediately began to support their opinion, saying that they had actually become stronger through training. But at that moment, our hero appeared, who said he also wants to try to do what they do. But at the same time, the whole group was very scared. They said they just wanted to talk. But our protagonist asked them if they were just trying to avoid talking to him. Everyone was wary, so Kusanagi decided to say that the training session would start soon, so he wanted to see what they were capable of. The sisters, as well as absolutely the entire cast, began using a spell that our protagonist put only one shield on. The girls thought that the shield would not help him, so our hero strengthened it 4 times. The entire group also continued to use the grass country, but to their surprise, our protagonist, as well as the shield, remained intact. The whole group was just terrified of this. After all, they used as many as 6 spells on him. How did he even survive? But Kusanagi only made it clear that it was his turn to use magic on them. Everyone immediately got scared, and in a second they were already lying on the floor, realizing that our main character is a complete monster. While they were lying down, they received a call on the phone, which changed their facial expressions. Kusanagi asked what was wrong with them, but both sisters just stared at our character and said that their father had returned home. Of course, the view opens up to us so that both daughters are sitting in front of their father in complete silence. He asked them if they were actually members of a special magic squad. The daughters made it clear that this was the case, so the father asked them to tell more about everything. Of course, the girls immediately started talking, starting with the fact that it was their squad that was making a huge contribution to society, because they were trying to deal with criminologists as much as possible, and also that they were able to improve their skills not only with the help of Kusanagi, but also with the help of everyone else. Of course, my father has noticed that his daughters speak too highly of our protagonist, so he's probably actually amazing. But at the same time, his daughters said something that my father didn't want to hear. He heard that our character is as strong as he is. My father took a sip of his tea and then said that they should leave the same party, because first of all, it would be worth saying that the reputation of the magical nobles is very much shaken, so it can tell in Japan. It is the same magic squad that helps bring help to people, but certainly not to help noble families, especially the same Kusanagi that causes the most harm, so my father said that he forbids having any connections with this organization in the future. Of course, the daughters started saying that it was all unfair, but the father made it clear that his daughters always listened to him, so they should continue to do this until now. Both of her daughters knew that they had always obeyed their father's orders, that they had never been able to reproach him for anything, but now she realized that this was a different moment. She said that now she won't give up what she started doing, because Minato is the one who is most likely to save the world, and yet they have been training together almost every day. She said that a magic squad is the very thing that their magic doorman should do no matter what. Of course, the daughter understood that if her father asked her to join the magic rite as a noble magician, then she would agree to blasp, but if he asked her to withdraw from it, then she would not agree. It was at this point that her father stood up and said that it could only mean that she would no longer have her title. But to this, Mizuha Yuika only said that she accepted it, so he joined his group as an ordinary person. Her father noticed that Yuika had changed, so she told her father. It was at this point that she also said that she was going along with her sister. Her father then asked her not to take their last name anymore, to which his eldest daughter also agreed. She went to the door and thanked him for everything. As soon as the 2 sisters left, they packed up their things and thought only that their father was acting with only one opinion, that he didn't even care about anything. However, Yuika asked her sister if she was ready to leave the family on her own, but the sister only said that there was no need to worry about it because she had the same reasons as her younger sister, so she just couldn't let her go like this. Yuika was very happy with her sister's response, so they just hugged. It was at this point that they had already checked into the hotel, where they were initially happy until they realized that everything that surrounded them was the property of the hotel itself. Of course, the older sister tried to cheer up her little sister, but it didn't work out because even the money they received from their organization, they just couldn't use it for some reason. By that time, while they were sitting at the table, they were joined by two guys who definitely wanted to meet. They didn't pay any attention to Yuika's exclamations, so the older sister had to step in and show them her place. Of course, Yuika wasn't offended by this bunch of after all. She took her older sister's hand and said that it was time to have some fun. They immediately went for a walk, and from the walk they began to return in the evening. Of course, they had a very good time, bought a lot of gifts, and Yuika said that she was very lucky to have an older sister like her. Of course, both sisters knew that they couldn't lie about their age, so they couldn't stay in a hotel, but where could they stay? Just as they were thinking about it, a message came to Yuika's phone saying that Minato needed help using the phone. This prompted both sisters that most likely they could come to him and ask for one favor. He asked to stay with him for a while. At this point, both sisters were already sitting in front of our hero, telling him everything they had done, or rather that they had run away from home. Of course, Minato knew that this was all reckless, and Yuika said that it was all true, but they had no other choice. It was at this point that it made it clear to our hero that rather both sisters have changed, since now they are so honest with themselves, so that they have even become much closer between each other. Yuika started shouting and saying that they don't really know where to go, so our protagonist is their only hope. But for our main character, the only problem was that he perceived them as women, so that's the only thing that can be difficult for him. He exhaled and said that they could stay, even though his house was cramped enough. The sisters were delighted with this information, but after the words that they were so beautiful and would live in his house, they definitely blushed. Yuika felt that this feeling was much more different from what it was before, because now they would be living together. Her sister could also feel her heart beating wildly, but they were even more stunned by the question, do they want to take a bath? Yuika of course said she didn't want to, but then she went there anyway, so her older sister was left alone with Minato. Our character told her that it was a pretty harsh thing to do, to leave the house, to which the girl said that in fact it was all amazing for them. Of course, they expected their father to be a little more gentle, but they still couldn't wait for it. Our main character was just thinking that their father's impression of their squad is probably pretty bad, so he probably knows who they are. By that time, Yuika came out of the bath and asked her sister to go to the bath now. As soon as she went to take a bath, Yuika sat down now, too, alone with our hero. She said it was a little strange. She was in his room. Minato confessed that no one had ever been there before, but Yuika just smiled again and said that she was very grateful for everything. Our hero, without understanding anything, said that everything was fine, but Yuika laughed and said that our character always says that. But then our hero said that in front of him were members of his team, as well as friends. He just can't leave them in the lurch. Yuika started to feel embarrassed again, and her heart started beating even faster. At this point, my sister finished all her work, so it was our protagonist's turn. The older one saw how the younger one felt about Minato, so she decided not to say anything. By that time, the black magician came to the policeman and said that both sisters now live with him, which took the policeman by surprise. After all, he did not understand that such a thing was even possible among the young. The police officer just said that he wanted to teach him a lesson and immediately told him that Japan is not a polygamous country. Of course, after leaving the police officer's office, our main character thought that in fact his room was small enough for 3 people, but still, then his eyes were directed to the street where the police officer was practicing her spells. She said that she can now use quite complex spells, and also that it is not necessary for Minato to address her formally, because apparently they now have a relationship as a boss and a henchman. However, as soon as Ta said that, our protagonist asked her to use a few spells. The girl immediately fired a shot, which made it clear that she had actually become strong. The girl was very happy, but she still thought that she was weak, so Minato told her that she underestimated herself very much, and besides, she worked too hard for such a result, it was impossible to just take and reduce her results. The girl at that moment said that the main reason for joining the police was because she is a rare saint mage, so she would like to use her power with someone. But she was always stopped by the fact that she is the weakest person in the squad, so she hates herself for it. As soon as she said this, she began to apologize for such a frank speech, but our main character asked why the police. The girl immediately said that her grandmother was a light magician, so she wanted to become one as well. She started saying that it was a pretty stupid reason, that she was just too weak. But our character only said that Sanada has her own strengths, because she can now both heal people and try to protect them with the help of force. It doesn't matter what path she chooses now, because she's so wonderful. Sanada immediately burst into tears, so our characters decided to sit down on the stairs and have a heart-to-heart conversation. Sanada calmed down so that they could only laugh now, knowing that Minato hadn't saved her for the first time. Night had fallen, which meant that there was another case for the Black Mage along with Leona. She said that she had information that they would need very badly. She said that she had information about the noble mages and their families. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.